大家好，今天这个视频会非常长，因为我们会把口语第3部分的所有题目都讲到，一共有193道题。好消息是，这么多题我们只需要用3个 strategies 就可以全部解决。虽然题库每隔几个月就会更新一次，但大部分题目其实都不会变，所以不管大家什么时候看这个视频，都会对你非常有帮助。大家有没有觉得 Part 3有些题目就算用中文回答也很难把答案说长？比如我之前考试的时候遇到过这题 Why are some people nervous when giving a presentation? 我当时答的是 Because they are not well prepared， 因为他们准备不充分。然后我就只能稍微的扩展一下 If they had more time to prepare, they might feel more confident。但是后来我想了想，我没办法把答案说长，是因为我选错了角度。如果让我用这个角度把这题再回答一遍，我还是没有办法给出一个较长的答案。所以我分析了所有 Part 3的题目，我发现遇到一些特别难的题目的时候，我们不能想到什么就说什么。最容易想到的原因，往往是非常难扩展的原因。比如，人们演讲时会紧张，是因为他们没有准备充分。这就是一个非常容易想到的原因，但它很难扩展。这道题会变得非常好，容易回答。如果我们先说普通人 ordinary people 不好的一方面，然后再和 successful people 再和成功人士对比，说一说成功人士好的方面，这样我们就可以很容易的想到非常容易扩展的 ideas。注意，我们答题的时候，我们要先说普通人，因为我之前考试的时候，我答题的时候，我不停地讲 Mark Zuckerberg 这种成功人士，然后考官就跟我说要说 people in general， 所以我们先说普通人。但是我们在构思的时候，如果你先去想 successful people， 反而会更容易想出 ideas。比如说这一题我们在构思的时候，我们可以先去想一想，为什么像 Jeff Bezos 或者是 Mark Zuckerberg 这种成功人士，他们在演讲的时候一点都不紧张。他们不紧张是因为他们知道他们是自己领域的专家。They know they are the real experts in their field, so they are confident that whatever they say in the presentation will add real value for their audience. 不管他们说什么，都可以给观众带来很大的价值。接下来我们就可以反过来想，为什么相比之下，普通人他们演讲的时候就会非常的紧张呢？成功人士不紧张，是因为他们知道他们是自己领域的专家。相比之下，普通人他们紧张，就是因为他们知道他们自己肚子里面没货。They know they are a bit of fake. They know they are fake gurus. They don't really know their field as well as they pretend to.大家看构思的时候，我们先想 successful people， 是不是就很容易想出这些 ideas？ 还有一个非常实用的技巧就是举例 provide an example。 如果你不举例的话，一般情况下那就只能不停的罗列 ideas。 比如说你首先可能会去说 They are nervous because they aren't well prepared， 然后你有可能又会去用 what's more 去引出第二个 idea， What's more they may be inexperienced。但是考官不想听见这样的答案，他不想听见你去 firstly, secondly and finally 这样去 list points， 他更想听到的是你去扩展一个答案，所以举例是非常重要的。比如说这里我们可以以一个 tech worker 为例。 Take a tech worker for example. In his daily work, he mostly uses AI to write code and fix bugs. Then one day, his boss asked him to give a presentation about how the app he built actually works. He definitely panics because his boss and the colleagues might find out that he doesn't understand programming that well, and he could even get fired. 这样我们的 idea 就充分的扩展出来了。大家可以看到，虽然答题的时候我们是先讲普通人 ordinary people， 但是在构思的时候我们先去想 successful people， 先去想成功人士，这样反而可以帮我们更容易的去找到一个非常容易扩展的 idea。 这就是我想和大家分享的第一个方法 ordinary people versus successful people。第一步 briefly answer the question， 简要的回答题目。第二步 provide an example， 举例。然后最后我们再去和 successful people 对比。再强调一遍，虽然答题的时候我们是先去说 ordinary people 普通人，但是我们在构思的时候先去想 successful people， 反而更容易去想出一个非常容易扩展的 idea。 因为第二步是举例，所以我给大家准备了一些可以直接套的例子。一种很常用的例子就是去讲某一种职业的人，所以我们只用去熟悉一下不同职业的人，他们在他们的工作中都做些什么，然后把它放到例子里面去就可以了。Low-income workers, warehouse workers, they pack boxes all day. Waiters, they take orders and carry plates all day. Delivery drivers, they deliver parcels from door to door all day.Baristas, they make cup after cup of coffee all day. Call center workers, they answer the same complaints on the phone all day. High-income workers, tech workers write code and fix bugs. Doctors, examine patients and decide how to treat them. Lawyers, read long case files and argue cases in court. Engineers, design and test machines. Bankers, spend all day looking at numbers.这些怎么用呢？比如说我们可以把刚才这个例子里面的 tech worker 很容易的把它换成 warehouse worker， 那这个例子就变成了 Let's say a warehouse worker. He tells his boss that he wants to get promoted to warehouse manager. So his boss asks him to give a presentation about how to run a warehouse. But if all he does every day is pack boxes and never uses his free time to learn management skills like handling inventory,Of course, he will be nervous because his boss will quickly see he knows nothing about the job and he won't get the promotion. 下面的第1到26题都会用这个方法来答题。我们首先简要的回答题目 briefly answer the question， 然后举例，最后和成功人士对比。大家会发现我后面的题目里面用的最多的例子就是 warehouse worker， 你们可以很容易的把它换成其他的，比如 tech worker, doctors 或者是 content creators， 或者是其他任何你想用的职业都可以。我们从第一个话题 routines and plans 开始，大家可以使用 description 里面的影片章节功能，直接找到自己想要学习的话题。就算你不想开口练习口语，至少把这个视频多听几遍，哪怕只是听熟悉答案、熟悉答题思路，多多少少也是可以进步的。
Do you think it is good to change one's daily routine?
Yeah, I'd say it's generally good to switch up your daily routine. The problem is, most ordinary people never do.They get stuck in the same routine and basically live on autopilot. Let me give you a perfect example. A warehouse worker might pack boxes every day for 10 years, come home every evening, and watch Netflix until they fall asleep. Because they never learn anything new, they slowly become stagnant and start falling behind as machines gradually take over jobs like theirs. But successful people are the complete opposite. Think about how CEOs and managers build their daily routines.They make a point of working something new into each day, like spending an hour learning a fresh skill every morning. So they keep growing and stay ahead while everyone else stands still.
Do you think people like the process of making plans more or the moment of carrying them out?
Honestly, I think most people enjoy making the plan far more than actually executing it, because executing it takes a lot of self-discipline. For example, take a warehouse worker who wants to get promoted to warehouse manager. He makes a to-do list.like reading a management book and watching tutorials after work. But after just a few days, he gives up because he's exhausted from packing boxes all day and just wants to lie on the couch scrolling social media. So the plan never goes anywhere. But successful people are completely different. Think about CEOs and managers. They actually enjoy executing the plan the most because that's when they see real self-growth, so they push through even when they're tired and slowly turn their plans into real results.Do
people often make plans around their regular routines?
Honestly, I'd say it really depends on the person. Most ordinary people never make plans around their routine because they don't really stop and think. They just live the exact same way every single day. For example, after work, someone might drop straight onto the couch and scroll short videos until bed, and they do that every evening for years without ever planning to use that time for anything.So their life just stays frozen and never moves forward. But successful people are the complete opposite. They add new plans into their routine on purpose, like blocking out an hour every evening to learn a new skill, so they don't get stuck forever in the comfort zone their routine creates.
Do people often change their plans?
Honestly, yeah, I think people change their plans really often, and it's usually because of work. Most ordinary people have almost no control over their own time.For example, you might have planned to have dinner with your friends after a long week. But then all of a sudden, your boss calls you in to work extra hours, so you have no choice but to cancel and let your friends down. So your own plans always come second to your job. But successful people are different. Think about people who've climbed the career ladder to a higher position, like the CEO level. They have far more control over their time, so they can set their own hours and rarely have to drop their plans for anyone.
How do people decide when to travel?
Honestly, I'd say it mostly comes down to how much control people have over their own time. Most ordinary workers have almost none. For example, a regular office worker can't take time off whenever he likes. He might even get called in to work extra hours on the weekend. This means he's forced to wait for a public holiday to travel, even though he knows it'll be packed and expensive. So he ends up traveling whenever his job allows, not when he actually wants to. But successful people are completely different. Think about high-level managers, or CEOs. They have full control over their own schedule, so they can travel whenever they like, picking the quiet off-season and enjoying a calm, relaxing trip with no crowds at all.
在继续讲课之前，我想介绍一下我们的3天挑战大作文。这个挑战已经帮很多同学写作考取了自己需要的分数。比如说，这位同学，他参加了这个挑战以后，写作考取了7分。然后还有这位同学，他参加了这个挑战后，写作从5.5分进步到了6.5分，甚至还有同学进步到了7.5分。大家看这位同学，他之前写作就是6.5分，然后他参加了这个挑战以后，写作进步到了7.5分。这个挑战就是大家每天看1节课的视频，然后每天完成课里面的作业。最重要的是，我们会给大家批改大家的作业，链接在置顶评论，大家不要忘了看一下。那现在我们接着讲课。
Is it good for people to get a job promotion?
Yeah, I'd say getting a promotion is generally a good thing, though not everyone sees it that way. A lot of ordinary people actually don't think it's good because a promotion means more responsibility. For example, when a warehouse worker is promoted to a warehouse manager, they suddenly have to take care of the whole inventory and make sure everything gets done on time, instead of relaxing at home, watching Netflix, or spending time with their family. So for them, the promotion feels more like a burden than a reward. But successful people see it completely differently. Think about how CEOs and managers built their careers. They welcomed every promotion because each step up gave them more responsibility and a real chance to grow and prove themselves.
What do you think of people going after high positions?
I think going after high positions is generally a good thing, though not everyone agrees. A lot of ordinary people actually think it's not worth it because a high position means much more pressure. For example, a warehouse worker might get the chance to become a warehouse manager, but they turn it down because as a worker, they only need to follow instructions and move the boxes they're told to. Once they become a manager, though, they suddenly have to take care of the whole team and be responsible for every mistake. So they stay in the same comfortable role for years and never really push themselves. But successful people see it in a completely different way. Think about how CEOs and managers built their careers. They went after every higher position they could because each one gave them more power to make decisions and a real chance to prove what they could do.
Do you think it is good to change jobs?
Yeah, I think changing jobs is usually a good thing. The problem is that most ordinary people are too scared to make the switch, even when they're unhappy. For example, someone might be really passionate about music and want to make music videos on YouTube to make money. But they stay in their dull office job because it pays the bills and feels safe. So they spend years doing something they don't enjoy and never give their real talent a chance. But successful people treat their careers very differently. Think about how CEOs and managers move between jobs. They happily switch to a new company whenever it offers a bigger challenge, so every move pushes them to learn more and climb higher.
Do you think children should have ambitions?
Yeah, I think children should definitely have ambitions. The problem is that a lot of ordinary kids grow up without any because no one ever pushes them to dream big. For example, a child might be really good at drawing, but their parents just tell them to forget about it and focus on getting good grades for a safe job later. So they slowly give up on that talent and end up living without a real goal. But successful people were raised in a very different way. Think about how CEOs and managers talk about their childhood. They usually had a clear ambition from an early age, like wanting to build something of their own, and that goal pushed them to work hard and keep improving.
Should parents support their children in pursuing their ambitions?
Yeah, I definitely think parents should support their children's ambitions. The problem is that most ordinary parents do the complete opposite. For example, a child might dream of making music and building a big YouTube channel, but their parents tell them to forget about it and study hard for a safe office job instead. So the child slowly gives up on their passion and never finds out how far their talent could have taken them. But successful people raise their kids very differently. Think about how CEOs and managers treat their own children's dreams. They encourage them to chase whatever they're passionate about and give them the freedom to try and fail. So the child grows up confident enough to go after big goals.
Is it good for a person to be ambitious?
Yeah, I'd say being ambitious is generally a good thing, though not everyone sees it that way. A lot of ordinary people think it's not worth it, because being ambitious means giving up their comfort. For example, someone might dream of making music for YouTube and gaining hundreds of thousands or even millions of subscribers, but they never start because it would mean working for years with little money at first, instead of just relaxing on their weekends. So they stay in their safe job and never find out what they could have achieved. But successful people think in a completely different way. Think about how CEOs and managers run their lives. They set big goals on purpose and chase them no matter how hard it gets. So they keep growing while everyone else stays in the same place.
Do you think it is necessary to be ambitious when working in a team in a company?
Yeah, I think being ambitious in a team is really important. The problem is that a lot of ordinary people don't think it's necessary because they feel the team will be fine with or without their effort. For example, during team meetings, someone might just sit there quietly and agree with whatever others say instead of sharing their own ideas because they don't want extra work. So while everyone else gets noticed for their thinking, that person slowly becomes invisible, and they're often the first to be let go when the company cuts staff. But successful people act in a completely different way. Think about how CEOs and managers behave in a team. They push the whole group toward bigger goals and take the lead whenever there's a problem, so the team does better and they grow along with it.
What kind of people like getting up early? Do you know anyone who likes to get up early?
I'd say it's mostly driven, goal-oriented people who actually enjoy getting up early. Most ordinary people definitely don't like it. For example, a coffee barista might set 5 alarms, but still can't get out of bed because they're simply not motivated to go and make hundreds of cups of coffee all day. They're only doing the job to pay the bills, so there's nothing in the morning worth waking up for. But successful people are the type who truly like it. Think about how CEOs and managers treat their mornings. They jump out of bed early because they're genuinely motivated, working toward their own big goals instead of just a paycheck. So the early morning feels exciting rather than painful.
Why do some people like to stay up late?
I think people stay up late for 2 very different reasons. Most ordinary people do it just to waste time. For example, a gamer might stay up late playing video games to escape reality. In the game, they feel like a hero, but in real life, they can't even do their job right and always get blamed by their boss. So they wake up exhausted and get nothing useful out of those late hours. But successful people stay up late for a much better reason. Think about how CEOs and managers use that quiet time. They stay up to finish an important project or learn a new skill while the world is asleep. So those extra hours actually push them closer to their goals.
Why do people get up early?
I think people get up early for very different reasons. Most ordinary people only do it because they're forced to. For example, someone might drag themselves out of bed at 6 just to beat the traffic and get to work on time, and the moment the weekend comes, they sleep in as late as they possibly can. So for them, getting up early feels like a duty rather than a choice. If they're often late, they might even get fired or have their salary cut. But successful people get up early on purpose. Think about how CEOs and managers start their day. They wake up before everyone else to exercise or plan ahead while the world is still quiet, so they get a real head start and stay ahead of the rest.
Why do some people prefer to work by themselves?
I think people prefer to work by themselves for very different reasons. A lot of ordinary people do it just to avoid extra responsibilities. For example, a warehouse worker might prefer to work on their own, quietly moving boxes because they don't want to train new staff or take charge of a team. They just finish their shift and go straight home. So they stay in their own little bubble and never learn how to work with people. But successful people sometimes prefer working alone for the complete opposite reason. Think about how CEOs and managers operate. When they have a clear vision, they take full responsibility and push it forward themselves rather than waiting for everyone to agree. So working alone actually helps them move faster and stay in control.
How can you tell if a person is a good leader?
I think the best way to tell is by watching how someone acts when things go wrong. A lot of ordinary leaders fail this test completely. For example, when a warehouse gets really busy and orders start piling up, a weak warehouse manager just stands back and shouts at the workers, blaming them for the mess instead of stepping in to help. So the team loses all respect for them, and everyone's mood falls apart. But a good leader does the complete opposite. Think about how the best CEOs and managers behave under pressure. They stay calm, take the blame themselves, and jump in to help, so their team trusts them and works even harder. That's how you can spot a real leader.
What are the factors leading to people's success?
I think the main factor is the willingness to keep going, even when things get hard. And this is exactly what most ordinary people lack. For example, someone might start a YouTube channel, hoping to grow it big, so that one day they can quit their day job and make a living doing what they're really passionate about. But after a few months with only a handful of subscribers, they get discouraged and quit, so all their early effort goes to waste. But successful people work in a completely different way. Think about how CEOs and managers built their companies. They kept pushing through years of failure and slow progress without giving up. And that patience is exactly what turned their hard work into real success in the end.
What is the difference between ordinary people and successful people?
I think the biggest difference is how they deal with their dreams. Most ordinary people have dreams too, but they're too scared to actually chase them. For example, someone might love making music and dream of building a big YouTube channel with millions of subscribers, but they stay in their safe office job because it pays the bills, so they never give their real talent a chance. But successful people are the complete opposite. Think about how CEOs and managers built what they have. They take real risks and keep working toward their goals even when things get hard. So over time, they slowly turn those dreams into reality, while ordinary people are still only dreaming.
Do you think a gap period in life is important?
Honestly, I think it depends on the person. For most ordinary people, a gap period isn't really important because they never stop to think about their life anyway. They just do the same repetitive work every single day. For example, a warehouse worker might spend years moving boxes without ever asking what they truly want. So even if they got a whole year off, they'd probably just rest and watch TV without any deep thinking about what they want to achieve in life. But successful people use a gap period very differently. Think about how CEOs and managers would spend that time. They'd reflect on their past work, including their mistakes and the things they did well, so that they can prepare better for what comes next.
Why are some people willing to spend a lot of money on meals on special days?
Honestly, I think a lot of people do it because they feel a bit empty inside. Let me give you an easy example. Some people book a fancy restaurant on their birthday, mainly to take photos of the meal and post them on Instagram. Then they spend the whole night checking the likes and comments coming in, because all that attention makes them feel important. The food itself almost doesn't matter, since what they're really paying for is approval from others. But successful people don't need that kind of confirmation. Some rich people actually keep things very simple, like having a small wedding dinner with just family and close friends, because they feel secure enough that they don't need to impress anyone.
Do people prefer local or international news?
I think it depends on who you ask. Most ordinary people prefer local news because their world is honestly quite small. For example, an ordinary woman may only pay attention to local news like a new shopping mall opening with big discounts, while an ordinary man may only care about a new gym opening near his home. Anything happening outside their city feels like it has nothing to do with them, so their view of the world stays narrow year after year. But successful people are the complete opposite. Think about how CEOs and managers read the news. They follow international news closely, like new technology coming out overseas, because that kind of news shapes their next business decisions.
How do people usually make important decisions?
I think people make important decisions in two very different ways. Most ordinary people decide based on fear and whatever feels safe. Consider someone who is doing a steady office job, but is actually dreaming of building a successful YouTube channel so that one day they can quit their day job. When it comes to the decision, they almost always stay in the safe job, simply because they're scared of losing a stable income. So they end up making the comfortable choice rather than the right one, and they often regret it later. But successful people decide in a completely different way. Think about how CEOs and managers make big calls. They weigh the long-term gains carefully and aren't afraid to take a risk if it pays off down the road, so their decisions push them forward instead of holding them back.
How do people learn new things?
I think the real difference is who people learn from. Most ordinary people just learn new things from their friends, even when those friends don't actually know any better. For example, when someone is searching for a job, they might ask their friends for advice, and those friends, who are just as stuck as they are, tell them to play it safe and apply for the same boring jobs. So they end up in a job they hate, just like their friends, and their life only gets worse. But successful people learn in a completely different way. Think about how CEOs and managers pick up new things. They go straight to real experts, like reading books by people who've actually done it, or finding a mentor in the field. So the advice they get genuinely pushes them forward.
How does technology affect the way people spend their leisure time?
Technology has completely changed how people relax, though not always for the better. Most ordinary people just use it to kill time, coming home and scrolling social media for hours. For example, they might watch one lifestyle vlog after another hoping to unwind, but they actually end up feeling worse. Seeing those influencers with perfect homes and dream holidays just reminds them of everything they don't have. So instead of feeling refreshed, they feel a bit down and stuck. But successful people use technology in a much smarter way. Think about how CEOs and managers spend their downtime. They listen to podcasts or take online courses, so their leisure time actually helps them grow and recharge. That intentional use of technology is part of what sets them apart.
下面我们再来讲 Strategy 2 Make it about people 把你的答案和人联系起来。有些题目它是关于 pets, lakes, car buildings, homes, animals, or gifts 像这种类型的题目，如果你只去 describe the thing in the question 如果你只去描述题目里面的这些东西，比如说如果你只去描述 pets 那你会很难把答案说长，除非你有大量的关于宠物的词汇。解决方法就是我们把我们的答案和人联系起来 make it relevant to people 我们可以通过问自己这些问题来把我们的答案和人联系起来。我们可以问 How does the thing in the question affect people 这些东西它对我们有怎样的影响 Why does it matter to people 为什么这些东西对我们很重要 What do people do with it 这些东西和我们的生活有怎样的联系也就是说我们在答题的时候我们去说一说题目里面的东西然后再去说一说人这样加起来我们的答案就可以变得很长下面我来给大家演示一下我们怎么样用这个技巧来把答案和人把它联系起来我们来看这一题 Many people regard pets as members of their family What do you think? 如果我们只去描述宠物的话我们可能会去说 Yeah, I really do think pets are like family members because they are cute, loyal, and friendly. 除非你有很大的词汇量去描述宠物它们怎么个可爱怎么个忠诚怎么个友好不然的话这个答案真的是很难扩展下去所以我们可以把我们的答案和人联系起来我们可以问自己 How do pets affect people? Why do pets matter to people? 它们为什么对我们很重要？它们会给我们带来怎样的好处？宠物可以给我们提供情绪价值呀，对吧？ They can give us emotional support. 这个角度就不是去说宠物它们自身怎么样怎么个可爱怎么个忠诚这个角度就是从人出发去写宠物给人提供的好处好处就是 emotional support然后接下来我们就可以去说 Imagine someone who has just lost their job and feels too embarrassed to tell their family. But when they get home, they can pour everything out to their dog. Their dog just listens without judging them. 这些只是一些 ideas, 我稍后会给大家看这一题的完整答案。下面我们再来看这一题 Are rivers and lakes important to your country? 如果我们只描述 lakes 的话，我们可能会去说 Yeah, they are important because they make our natural landscape more beautiful. 这个答案很难扩展，除非你掌握了大量的词汇去描述 lakes 有多美。所以我们要把我们的答案和人联系起来，我们可以问自己 How do lakes or rivers affect people? What do people do with them? 我们去说 lakes 对我们的影响就是有很多人他们都是靠 lakes 谋生的。Yes, they're important because many people depend on them to make a living. In a small town, people may catch fish in the lake and sell them at the local market. Farmers may also use the water to grow their crops. 这个就是讲人们是怎样利用 lakes 来谋生的，对吧？还是一样的，这些只是一些 ideas， 我稍后会给大家看这一题的完整答案。现在大家已经知道，如果我们遇到有关 pets、lakes 或者是 tall buildings 或者是 homes 的这类题目，我们应该怎么样去答题。下面我再来给大家讲答案结构，它的结构和 strategy 1的结构是一样的。首先 briefly answer the question， 简要的回答题目。Yeah, I really do think pets are like family members because they can give us emotional support. 第二步还是举例，因为这个方法是要把我们的答案和人联系起来，所以举例的时候一般是围绕某一个具体的人，比如说这里我们用的是刚刚失业的人 someone who has just been laid off， 或者是围绕某一类具体的人展开，比如说这个题我们举例的时候我们用的是靠 lake 谋生的 fishermen or farmers 这一类人。我们把题目里面的这些东西，把题目里面的 rivers 和这些人的生活把它联系起来，这样答案就很容易说长。最后我们再用 that being said 来引出一个 drawback, a second point, an exception or a comparison 来使我们的答案变得更长。比如说这个答案就是先去说了宠物可以给我们提供情绪价值，然后我们再用 that being said 来引出一个缺点。That being said, I don't think we should take it too far. Some people spend a fortune treating their pets like real children, which feels a little extreme. 缺点就是会花很多钱。或者是我们还可以用 that being said 来引出 a second point 来引出第二个点。That being said, emotional support is not the only reason pets feel like family. Pets also become part of people's daily routines because owners feed them, walk them, and spend time with them every day. 大家记不记得之前我给大家说过，我们在答题的时候不要不停的列点子，不要 firstly 有什么优点， secondly 有什么第二个优点， finally 还有什么优点，不要这样子。但是呢，我这个地方我是用 that being said 把第二个原因引出来的，所以听起来好像不是在讲第二个原因，更像是在原来的答案上做了一个小小的转折。即使考官打断你也没有关系，你前面已经举例了，对吧？你的答案已经扩展得很充分了。或者我们还可以用 that being said 引出一个 exception， 引出一个例外。That being said, this is not true for everyone. Someone keep pets mainly for practical reasons, like gardening the house, so they may not see them as real family members. 例外就是有些人他们养宠物并不是把宠物当成 family members， 而是为了 reasons like gardening the house。或者我们还可以 make a comparison， 对比一下。That being said, pets are still different from human family members. A pet can give comfort, but it can't give advice or help solve real-life problems in the same way a parent or sibling can. 这个地方是和 real human family members 做对比了。接下来的21道题，我们都会用 strategy 2 make it about people 来答题。我们从宠物话题 pets 开始。
What are the advantages of keeping a pet?
I'd say the biggest advantage is that a pet gets you moving. Let me give you an easy example. Picture an office worker, like a video editor or a tech worker, who sits at a desk all day and never exercises. But once he gets a dog, he has no choice. The dog needs a walk every morning and evening, so twice a day he's out walking for half an hour. And after a few months, he's noticeably fitter and sleeps better. Without the dog, he'd never have built that habit on his own. That being said, that's not the only benefit. Walking a dog is also a great way to meet people, because you keep seeing the same dog owners every day and slowly become friends.
Many people regard pets as members of their family. What do you think?
Yeah, I really do think pets are like family members. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine someone who's just been laid off. They feel too embarrassed to tell their friends or family because they're scared they might never find a new job. But when they get home, they can sit down with their dog and pour everything out, and the dog just listens without judging them. In that moment, the pet becomes the one family member they can be completely honest with. That being said, I don't think we should take it too far. Some people spend a fortune treating their pets like real children, which feels a little extreme.
Do many people keep pets in your country?
Yeah, loads of people keep pets these days, mainly because a pet gives them company and emotional support. Let me give you an easy example. Picture someone who's just been laid off. He's too embarrassed to tell his friends or family because he's scared he might never find another job. But when he gets home, he can sit with his dog and pour everything out, and the dog just listens without judging him. Somehow, just letting it all out makes him feel a bit less alone. That being said, not everyone keeps pets. Some people work such long hours that they know it wouldn't be fair, since the poor animal would be left home alone all day.
Some people think a pet should not be kept in cities. What do you think?
Honestly, I don't agree with that. I think you can absolutely keep a pet in a city as long as you pick the right pet. Let me give you an easy example. Picture someone living in a city flat who keeps a small cat. People assume a cat needs a big garden, but a good owner can give it everything it needs indoors. He feeds it well every day, so it never has to hunt for food like a wild cat. He plays with it using toys to keep it active and takes it to the small park nearby for some fresh air. So even in a tiny flat, the owner can give the cat a happy, healthy life. That being said, it depends on the animal. A big, energetic dog wouldn't be fair because no owner could give it all the space it needs in a city flat.
How can rivers and lakes benefit local people?
I'd say one of the biggest ways rivers and lakes benefit local people is through the parks the government builds around them. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a warehouse worker on a low income, completely drained after packing boxes all day. He can't afford expensive entertainment like fancy restaurants or weekend trips, so on his day off, he just walks down to the park by the lake. Sitting by the water and breathing the fresh air costs him nothing, yet it slowly clears his head and washes the stress away. Without that free lakeside park, he'd probably just stay home scrolling his phone all day instead. That being said, it's not only about relaxing. Rivers and lakes also give us the fresh water we drink and use every day, so we simply couldn't live without them.
Are rivers and lakes good for transport? Why?
Yeah, I'd say water transport is great, especially for heavy goods. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a small furniture maker who designs and builds his own solid wood tables and promotes them on TikTok. His tables are beautiful, but they're incredibly heavy, so shipping is the hard part. He's only a small business, so he can't afford the faster options like road or rail, which charge a fortune for anything this heavy. Instead, he sends his tables by water, which costs just a fraction of the price. It's slower, but his customers know they're getting handmade furniture, so they're happy to wait. So water transport is what keeps his little business running. That being said, it isn't good for everything. It's far too slow for anything urgent, like fresh food, so that still has to go by air.
How do rivers and lakes affect local tourism? Do you think rivers and lakes affect tourism?
Yeah, I'd say rivers and lakes have a huge effect on local tourism because they basically keep some small towns alive. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a guy who runs a small seafood restaurant by a lake in a quiet town. For most of the year, the town is almost empty, and he barely makes enough to get by. But every summer, thousands of tourists come just to swim and relax by the water, and they fill his restaurant every single night. That one busy season earns him enough to support his family for the whole year. That being said, it's not only restaurants. The same crowds bring business to hotels and little shops, so the whole town lives off the lake.
Are rivers and lakes important to your country?
Yeah, I'd say rivers and lakes are really important, especially to small towns. The thing is, these towns just don't have the job opportunities you could find in a big city. In a big city, even without a college degree, you can always get a job like working in an Amazon warehouse. But a small town has no big companies like that. So most people there depend on the lake to make a living. They head out early every morning to catch fish, then sell them fresh at the local market. So without that lake, the whole town would have almost no income at all. That being said, it's not only fishing. The water also lets local farmers grow their crops, so even in a dry summer, they always have food to sell.
What are the differences between those tall buildings in your country?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest difference is that modern tall buildings now have everything inside them. And that's because people's lifestyles have changed. We're so busy with work these days that we don't have the time or energy to travel far for food or fun. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a tech worker, completely drained after fixing bugs all day. In his new tower, there's a gym, a cafe, and a few restaurants right downstairs, so he can eat and work out without ever leaving the building. But older buildings were just apartments, so people had to travel out for everything, like driving across town just to find a restaurant. That being said, it's not only about convenience. Newer buildings are also much safer in things like fires because they follow far stricter modern rules.
What are the advantages of living in tall buildings?
I'd say the biggest advantage is convenience because everything you need is right there in the same area. Let me give you an easy example. Say a warehouse worker who's completely drained after packing boxes all day with zero energy to go out shopping. Since he lives in a tall building right in the city, he can just open a delivery app and order from a restaurant down the street, and the food arrives in 15 minutes. But for someone who lives in a house far out in the suburbs, delivery takes forever or doesn't reach their area at all, so they have to drive miles just to find a meal. That being said, that's not the only benefit. Tall buildings are also safer because there's usually security at the entrance, watching who comes and goes.
Are there many tall buildings in your country?
Yeah, there are loads of tall buildings, especially in big cities, and honestly, they're a huge source of job opportunities. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a fresh graduate who moves to a big city to look for work. In the business district, a single tall office tower might hold dozens of different companies. So instead of traveling all over for interviews, he can find loads of openings all in one small area. And if one job doesn't work out, there's always another company just a short walk away. Without these towers, there simply wouldn't be this many jobs packed into one place. That being said, they have a downside. Packing so many workers into one small area means the trains get painfully crowded at rush hour.
Why do some people like to remodel and decorate their homes themselves?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that these people are stuck in dull, repetitive jobs that give them no sense of achievement at all. Let me give you an easy example. Say a warehouse worker who packs the same boxes all day, every single day. At the end of his shift, there's nothing he can really feel proud of. So on the weekend, he decides to paint his living room and put up some shelves himself. It takes him 2 full days, but when he steps back and sees the room completely transformed, he finally feels a sense of pride his job never gives him. That being said, it's not only about pride. Doing it yourself also saves a lot of money because hiring professional decorators these days costs a small fortune.
What are the advantages of growing vegetables or flowers at home?
I'd say the biggest advantage is that growing plants is a great way to relax and de-stress. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a tech worker who stares at a screen and fixes bugs all day, with his mind racing the whole time. When he gets home, he waters the tomatoes and flowers on his balcony and slowly checks each leaf to see how they're doing. Focusing on something so simple and quiet calms his busy mind. And after 20 minutes, all the stress from work just melts away. That being said, that's not the only benefit. Growing your own vegetables is also much healthier because you know there are no chemicals on them at all, unlike the ones sprayed with pesticides at the supermarket.
What kind of interior design style do most people like?
Honestly, I'd say most people these days go for a simple, minimalist style, and it often comes down to money. Think about high-paying workers, like tech workers. Even they find big cities incredibly expensive, so a lot of them share an apartment with roommates and only get one small bedroom to themselves. If they pack that little room with lots of furniture, it instantly looks cluttered and feels even smaller. So instead, they keep it minimal with just a bed, a desk, and maybe one plant. So the room feels open and calm, even though it's tiny. That being said, high-income people who can afford their own place often do the opposite. With a whole apartment to themselves and plenty of space, they fill it with lots of furniture and decorations that make the home feel cozy and personal.
What's the difference between homes in cities and those in the countryside?
I'd say the biggest difference is space. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a young worker in the tech or finance industry. Even with a decent salary, he still can't afford to live alone in a big city like New York, so he has to share a flat with 2 roommates. That's far from convenient because he shares 1 bathroom and 1 kitchen with them. In the morning, he often has to wait his turn just to use the bathroom before work, and at night, he can't fully relax because someone else is always around. But for the same money in the countryside, a person gets a whole house to themselves with total privacy and space.
Why are different places laid out and designed differently?
Honestly, I think places are designed around what people need there. Let me give you an easy example. Say you're a tech worker. At the office, you're always in a rush, fixing bugs with tight deadlines. So the business district around you is packed with tall towers and quick lunch spots, all close together, so you can grab food and get back to your desk in minutes. But when you get home, all you want to do is switch off. So your neighborhood is the opposite. It's quiet with a small park and a few calm cafes where you can sit for hours because nobody there is in a hurry. That being said, it's not always about work and rest. Some places are built just for fun, like a lively street full of bars and food stalls where people can wander around and enjoy themselves.
What kind of place do people in your country like to live in?
Honestly, I'd say a lot of people now dream of living in those calm, beautiful apartments you see in lifestyle vlogs. Think of why they love those morning routine videos, where the vlogger wakes up in a bright room, slowly makes their bed, then makes a coffee in a clean, tidy kitchen with a few plants by the window. Millions of people watch these on repeat because the place looks so peaceful, the complete opposite of their own small, messy flat. So they start dreaming of living somewhere just like that. That being said, not everyone feels that way. Some people know those vlogs are staged, so they'd rather have a home that's comfortable to actually live in than one that just looks good on camera.
Should schools teach children about animals?
Yeah, I definitely think schools should teach children about animals, especially wild animals, because they carry a powerful life lesson. In the wild, animals have to constantly adapt to survive, and any animal that can't keep up with a changing environment simply dies. The same rule applies to people. Even if they land a high-paying job one day, like a doctor or a tech worker, they still have to keep learning, or they fall behind and get replaced by AI. The problem is, children haven't entered the workplace yet. So if you just tell them this as a theory, it sounds empty and they won't get it. But seeing how a wild animal must adapt or die makes the lesson click. That being said, it's not the only benefit. Learning about animals also teaches kids kindness, because they realize animals feel pain and fear just like we do.
Why do people always tell children stories with animals?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that children learn far better through storytelling than through being lectured, and animals make those stories come alive. Let me give you an easy example. Take The Lion King. Simply telling a child to be brave and face their problems is boring. They switch off straight away. But if you use a storyline to show how the young lion Simba finds the courage to win back his kingdom after losing his father, children get completely pulled in, because they really want to know whether he'll beat all his enemies and take back his kingdom. And without even realizing it, they pick up the lesson about being brave. That being said, it's not only about the lesson. Children just love animals, so a story full of lions grabs their attention far more than one about people.
What kind of gifts do people usually bring when they visit others?
Honestly, I'd say people nowadays usually bring food, especially fruit, mainly because we're all too busy to think of anything more personal. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a tech worker who gets invited to a friend's place for dinner. He'd love to bring something his friend would really enjoy, but he's fixing bugs at his computer all day and is completely drained, so he has no time or energy to figure out what his friend actually likes. So on the way over, he just grabs a nice fruit basket because it's the safe choice. Nobody ever hates fruit. That being said, the people who really care still make the effort, like finding out the host loves something like tea and bringing a nice box of it.
Strategy 1 and Strategy 2里面的题目都比较难，我们需要用比较特别的方法来应对，但是剩下的题目都没那么难，想把答案说长，关键就是要举例 provide an example。我们首先还是 briefly answer the question 简要的答题，最后一步依旧是用 that being said 来引出一个 comparison， 或者是引出 the other side， 或者是引出 a second point or an exception， 关键就是这个第二步举例。我现在给大家分享4种举例的方法，第一种就是 choose a role。这个 role 可以是一种职业，可以是一个 job， 比如说 a warehouse worker, a tech worker, a barista, a teacher, or a delivery driver， 也可以是一个人他们在生活中的身份 life role， 比如说可以是 a student, a parent, a tourist, or a teenager。 比如说我们来看这道题 What are the advantages and disadvantages of advertisements？好处这边我们可以说 advertisements help people find useful products。接下来我们也许就会去解释广告是怎样帮助我们找到有用的产品的。问题是 advertisements 和 products 都很难扩展，我在 strategy 2里面就讲过，不要把重点放在去讲题目里面的东西，也就是这一题我们不要去把重点放在去讲 advertisements， 我们要多讲人，我们可以选一个 role， 这个地方我想选 warehouse worker， 我们可以描述how their job or identity affects their behavior. A warehouse worker may dream of becoming a warehouse manager one day. He may have been searching online for information about how to get there, so platforms like Facebook and YouTube pick up on that and start recommending relevant courses to him. Because the ad is so relevant, he may end up buying one of those courses.And through it, he may pick up some really useful management skills, which slowly helps him turn his dream of becoming a manager into reality. 大家看这个答案其实并没有讲太多 advertisements， 我们选好一个 role， 选好一个角色以后，我们可以多讲这个人， We can talk about their daily lives and how their job or identity affects their behavior.我们可以谈这个 role 的日常生活，还可以谈他的工作或者是身份是怎样影响他的行为的。比如说 warehouse worker 他每天做什么呢？他每天 pack boxes， 对吧？所以他根本就不懂怎么样管理仓库。And how does this affect their behavior？ 所以他有可能就会去 search online for information about warehouse management。他有可能就会去网上搜索一些有关 warehouse management 的 information。也就是有了这个 role， 有了这个角色以后，我们就可以很容易去说一些和这个 role 有关的内容，对吧？我再给大家举2个例子。Do most people prefer shopping at big stores or small stores？ 我们还是选一个 role， 我还是选 warehouse worker。warehouse workers 他们每天干什么？他们每天 pack boxes， 所以他们会很累。And how does this affect their behavior？很累，所以他们肯定更喜欢去 big stores， 去一次性就把他们想买的东西买完，对吧？ Warehouse workers pack boxes all day and feel tired after work. So when they need to shop, they just go to a big store to get everything at once, instead of traveling to several small stores. 然后这一题 Why do some people start their own business? 还是选一个 role， 这一题我选 tech worker. What do tech workers do in their daily lives?他们每天做什么？他们每天写代码，对吧？ Write code and fix bugs. And how does this affect their behavior? 但是他们每天做的这些 AI 就已经可以做了，所以他们知道他们总有一天会被 AI 完全的取代掉，所以他们 start their own business to protect themselves.Consider a tech worker. Every day, they use AI to write code and fix bugs. But AI can already do a lot of this work, so they may worry that one day they will be laid off. Because of that, they may start a side business to make a living. 我们可以很容易的把 warehouse worker 或者是 tech worker 把它换成这些职业。比如说这里我们可以把 warehouse workers 把它换成 baristas. Baristas, they make a cup after cup of coffee all day. So when they need to shop, they just go to a big store to get everything at once, instead of traveling to several small stores. 大家一定要熟悉这些例子，非常非常的实用。我知道 choose a role 这个方法和 strategy 2 make it about people 比较像，但是在讲 strategy 2的时候，我其实并没有讲怎么样举例，所以这个地方我觉得还是应该把 choose a role 这个方法单独拉出来讲一讲。下面我们再来讲第2种举例的方法 use social media。 这个方法特别好用，因为我们可以描述很多有关 social media 的 action， 也就是我们可以去描述我们在 social media 上可以做的事儿。We can post, view, and share photos or videos on social media. We can follow influencers on social media. We can get likes, views, or followers on social media. We can read or write comments on social media. We can compare ourselves with others on social media. We can copy what we see, buy things promoted online, or make content go viral on social media. 这些 actions 都非常非常容易的描述，因为我们平时就经常干这些事儿，对吧？我们来看这道题 Why are many advertisements endorsed by celebrities? 如果我们把答案的重点放在 celebrity 上面，我们可能就会去说 celebrities have a lot of fans, so their fans may buy the products they promote. 像这样的答案顶多就只能说 celebrities 他们有很多的粉丝，或者是他们长得非常的漂亮，很难扩展很多。但是如果我们把 social media 加到我们的答案里面去，我们就可以描述这些 actions。我们可以说 Imagine a pop star posts a photo wearing a particular pair of trainers. Millions of their fans see it, and because they admire that star so much, they instantly want to look just like them, so they immediately buy the exact same pair, even if they are really expensive. So the celebrity instantly turns their fame into massive sales for the brand. 这些 actions, post a photo, fans see it, want to look just like them, buy the exact same pair, 真的是非常容易脱口而出，对吧？这个就是用 social media 的好处，我们可以很容易的去描述这些 actions。我再给大家举个例子，我们来看这道题 When do most children begin to have their own opinions? I think children today form their opinions quite late because their parents tend to make decisions for them when they are younger. 这个答案的核心就是 parents， 你要去解释 parents 对孩子的观点的形成的影响，这个其实很难解释清楚。但是如果我们把 social media 作为原因的话，如果我们说 children today form their opinions quite late and social media is the main reason， 如果我们把 social media 作为原因的话，我们的答案里面就可以去描述这些 social media actions， 对吧？我们可以说 Let me give you an easy example. A 12-year-old girl may spend hours watching influencers' videos every day, so he just copies whatever they say, like believing she needs to lose weight or wear makeup to look good. As a result, she ends up feeling unhappy about her looks and loses her confidence, even though she's a perfectly normal, healthy kid. 把 social media 作为原因以后，我们就可以去讲这些 actions, watching influencers videos, copy whatever they say, 这样答案就变长了。下面第三种举例的方法就是用 AI 作为答案，这样特别容易把答案说长，因为 AI 给了我们两个非常容易扩展的角度。第一个角度就是我们可以把 AI 和 traditional way 进行对比，比如说我们可以把 AI 和传统的学习方式，或者是 AI 和传统的工作方式进行对比。比如说我们来看这一题 What is the best way to learn a language?我们可以说最好的学外语的方式就是跟着 AI 学。The best way to learn a language now is use AI, mainly because it's so flexible and fits right into your schedule. 我们用 AI 做答案，然后我们扩展的时候，我们举例的时候，就可以把 AI 和 traditional way 进行对比。因为这个题它问的是学语言，所以我们可以把 AI 和传统的学语言的方式进行对比。Let me give you an easy example. Say a busy office worker whose hours keep changing. If he signs up for a class, it's at a fixed time every week. He may not be able to make it when he has to work extra hours or when he's overworked and too tired to focus. But with an AI app, there is no fixed time at all. He can practice for 10 minutes on the subway, a bit more while waiting for his coffee, and a little before bed. So even with a packed schedule, he still gets plenty of practice. 这个答案就是把 AI 和传统的上语言班的这种传统的学习方式进行了对比。就是因为对比了，所以答案变长了。还有很多其他的题也可以这样对比来答题，比如说这一题 Is it important to plan a holiday ahead? 我们可以说不重要，然后用对比的方法进行扩展。我们可以把用 AI 快速的制定旅行计划和传统的自己做攻略进行对比。 Use AI to make a quick plan versus plan a holiday ourselves. 这样进行对比。再强调一下，关键就是把 AI 和传统的方式对比。你只有对比了，你说一说 AI， 然后再说一说传统的方式，这样你的答案才能变长。下面我们再来看 AI 可以给我们提供的第二个角度。第二个角度就是 describe a change caused by AI， 描述 AI 带来的改变。比如说我们来看这一题 On what occasions do people need to be organized?People need to be organized at work because otherwise they may miss an important task. 如果我们这样回答的话，我们的答案就只能限于去解释现在的情况，为什么现在人们需要在工作方面 be organized， 这样就很难把答案说长。但如果我们把 AI 加入答案的话，我们就可以 describe a change caused by AI。我们可以描述 AI 给 workplace 给我们的工作带来的变化，然后这个变化为什么使得我们在工作方面更加需要 be organized。 People need to be organized at work all the time now, mainly because of AI. In the past, most workers had just one role, so the job was fairly simple. But now AI makes each worker far more productive, so companies don't need as many people. And instead, they want one worker to take on several roles at once. Let me give you an easy example. A tech worker today may have to do both the coding and the design, work that used to take 2 separate people. If he isn't organized, he will lose track of everything and miss an important task. AI 给我们的工作带来的改变是什么呢？它使得我们更加的 productive， 使我们工作更加的高效，所以公司不需要那么多的员工 don't need as many people， 所以一个人就要干很多人的活 take on several roles， 因为我们需要干的活多了，所以我们必须要更加的 organized， 这样才能避免漏掉重要的工作。我们就是靠描述 AI 带来的 change 带来的变化来把答案说长的，对吧？我们再来看一个例子 Why do some people start their own business? 如果我们这样回答的话 Some people start a business because they want to be their own boss or make more money. 如果我们这样回答的话，那我们后面扩展的时候就只能讲 freedom 或者是 money， 这样很难把答案说长。但是如果我们用 AI 作为答案的话，我们可以描述 AI 给这些人的工作带来的改变，然后这个改变为什么导致他们想要开始创业。这里我以 tech worker 为例 I think a big reason is that people have realized a job isn't as safe as it looks. Let me give you an easy example. Think about workers at big tech companies. Deep down, many of them know that one day AI could take over their work and they will be laid off. So while they still have the job, they already start a side business like a YouTube channel. Once the channel earns enough to support them, whether through ads or sponsorships, they just quit.AI 带来的怎样的变化呢？ AI 会取代他们，导致他们失业，所以他们 start a side business 来保护他们自己。同样的，我们就是靠描述 AI 带来的改变来把答案说长的。下面第4种举例的方法就是 create a scenario， 创建一个场景。It gives us a clear context in which we can add specific details. 有了 scenario， 有了场景，我们就可以很容易去加入一些 specific details， 加入一些细节。如果没有一个 scenario， 我们就只去讲一些抽象的 ideas 的话，很难往具体的方向讲。但是一定要往具体的方向讲，你的答案才容易说长。比如说这道题 Does everything need to be well prepared? 我们可能会说 I don't think everything needs to be perfectly prepared. Sometimes over-preparing actually stops you from ever getting started. 但是为什么 over-preparing 会让我们迟迟无法开始呢？如果没有一个具体的场景，没有一个具体的 scenario 的话，我们很难去提供细节，对吧？所以这一题我们可以创建一个 over prepare before starting a YouTube channel 这样的一个场景，过度准备 YouTube channel。 Let me give you an easy example. Say someone wants to start their own YouTube channel. Instead of just filming a simple video on their phone, they spend months researching the perfect camera setup, waiting until everything is just right, but that perfect moment never comes. So a year later, they still haven't posted a single video.While someone less prepared has already built a big following. 这个答案它创建了一个场景 want to start a YouTube channel。 有了这个场景，我们就可以在这个场景里面去解释为什么 over preparation 会让你很难去 start your YouTube channel。 很难，因为他们花很多时间去 research 你的 perfect camera setup， 而不是 film a simple video on their phone。 我们就可以很容易加入像这样子和 YouTube channel 有关的细节，对吧？如果没有 YouTube channel 这样一个 scenario 的话，我们就可能只能去说 they spend months preparing， 但是他们为什么要 spend months preparing， 或者是怎么个 spend months preparing， 这个很难说清楚，如果没有一个场景的话，对吧？下面再来给大家举个例子，这一题 Would you tell others if you change your plan？ 如果我们说 Yes, because I don't want to hurt their feelings， 但是我们为什么会伤害对方呢？如果没有一个具体的 scenario 的话，这个很难把它解释清楚。所以我们可以创建一个 cancel dinner plans with a friend 这样的一个 scenario， 创建一个取消晚餐计划的 scenario， 然后我们就可以在这个 scenario 里面去解释为什么不告诉对方我们改变了计划会 hurt their feelings。 Let me give you an easy example. Say I've agreed to meet a friend for dinner, but something urgent suddenly comes up at work. If I just don't show up, he'd be left sitting alone at the restaurant, waiting and feeling embarrassed in front of the staff. So one quick message saves him from all of that. 因为我们有了一个取消晚餐计划 cancel dinner plans 这样的一个 scenario， 我们就可以很容易加入一些和 restaurant 相关的细节，对吧？Sitting alone at the restaurant, waiting and feeling embarrassed in front of the staff. 我们可以加入这些细节，就是因为我们有了一个 cancel dinner plans 这样的一个 scenario。那4种举例的方法就全部讲完了。第一种就是 choose a role， 第二种 use social media， 第三种 use AI， 第四种 create a scenario。 不管是哪一种方法，其实我都是教大家往具体的方面说。你总去说一些抽象的 ideas 的话，真的是很难把答案说长。你只要往具体的方向说，就是用我教给大家的这4种举例的方法往具体的方面说，这样才很容易把答案说长。接下来的第48题到186题都是用第3种方法 provide an example 来扩展的。我们从 advertising 话题开始。
What are the advantages and disadvantages of advertisements?
Well, I'd say advertising actually has a big upside these days, mainly because it's become so targeted. Ads nowadays aren't random or irrelevant anymore. Let me give you an easy example. A warehouse worker may dream of becoming a warehouse manager one day. He may have been searching online for information about how to get there. So platforms like Facebook and YouTube pick up on that and start recommending relevant courses to him. Because the ad is so relevant, he may end up buying one of those courses. And through it, he may pick up some really useful management skills, which slowly helps him turn his dream of becoming a manager into reality. That being said, advertising has its downside too. It can also push people to buy things they don't really need, like the latest phone, just because they keep seeing it everywhere, and they end up wasting money or falling into debt.
Do you think advertisements can influence our decisions when shopping?
Yeah, I'd say advertisements have a huge influence on what we buy, mainly because they've become so targeted these days. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a warehouse worker who dreams of becoming a warehouse manager. He's probably been searching online for warehouse management tips, so Google picks that up, and the next time he's watching YouTube, it recommends a paid management course right there in the ad. Because it's exactly what he's been thinking about, he ends up buying it without hesitating. So a targeted advert directly shaped his shopping decision. That being said, ads don't influence everyone. Some people are careful shoppers who always check reviews and compare prices. So a targeted advert alone isn't enough to sway them.
Why are many advertisements endorsed by celebrities? How useful are they?
Honestly, brands use celebrities because it works incredibly well. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a huge pop star post a photo wearing a particular pair of trainers. Millions of their fans see it, and because they admire that star so much, they instantly want to look just like them. So they immediately buy the exact same pair, even if they're really expensive. So the celebrity instantly turns their fame into massive sales for the brand. That being said, they're not always useful. If a celebrity gets caught in a scandal, all those fans suddenly link the brand with that bad news. So the endorsement can backfire and actually damage the company.
Which is more effective, online advertising or offline advertising?
Honestly, I'd say online advertising is far more effective because it actually knows who you are. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a warehouse worker who wants to get promoted to warehouse manager. He may have been searching for related business courses on Google, so Google picks that up and shows him relevant course ads when he's watching YouTube. Since that's exactly what he needs, he may well click and even buy one. But the ads he sees offline, like posters at the bus stop, are probably completely irrelevant because those advertisers don't know who he is. So to him, most offline ads are just noise. That being said, offline ads still work in some cases, like a huge screen in a city center, because seeing a brand that big makes it feel famous and trustworthy.
Is advertising important for a company? Why?
Yeah, I'd say advertising is absolutely vital for a company, especially now that influencer advertising works so well. Let me give you an easy example. Think about lifestyle influencers. They already have millions of loyal followers, so when a skincare company sponsors one of their posts, those followers are very likely to buy the product because they've been watching this influencer every day for years. And her recommendation feels like advice from a close friend rather than an ad. So with just one sponsored post, a small skincare brand can reach millions of people overnight and watch its sales explode. That being said, advertising only works when the product is actually good. If the product disappoints, those same followers will complain in the comments, and the brand's reputation falls apart even faster.
Why are some advertisements boring?
Honestly, I think most boring ads are offline ads because they're usually not relevant to you at all. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a warehouse worker waiting at the bus stop every morning. The posters there are about luxury watches and fancy apartments, things he will never buy. So to him, those ads are just boring noise. But online ads are a different story. Google knows what he has been searching for online, so the ads he sees on YouTube are about things he's actually interested in. That being said, even relevant ads can get boring. When the same ad follows you around for weeks, you get so tired of it that you skip it the moment it pops up.
What is the most important factor in an advertisement?
Honestly, I think what matters most is whether the ad grabs your attention straight away, because almost every ad today is skippable. Let me give you an easy example. Say you're watching an educational tutorial on YouTube, and right in the middle, an ad pops up that has nothing to do with what you're learning. So unless those first few seconds are funny enough to make you stop, you'll skip it instantly and get back to the tutorial. When that happens, the ad just becomes an interruption to your viewing experience instead of generating any sales. That being said, grabbing attention isn't everything. The ad should also clearly explain the benefit, so people understand exactly how the product would make their life better.
Do you think the influence of advertising is good?
Yeah, I'd say the influence is mostly good, mainly because digital advertising now helps small businesses reach customers. Let me give you an easy example. In the past, we only had TV and billboard ads, which were so expensive that only big brands could afford them. But now, picture a young designer who creates unique t-shirt designs at home. For just a few dollars, he can run an Instagram ad shown only to young people who would love that exact style. Within days, they start ordering, and his brand slowly takes off, which was impossible before. That being said, advertising isn't all good. A lot of ads work by making people feel that what they have isn't good enough, just to push them to buy more.
Do you think students are overly reliant on AI?
Yeah, students today do use AI a lot, but I'd say it can actually be a good thing. For example, if a student writes an essay and isn't sure whether a sentence is correct, they can just paste it into AI and get an instant fix, along with a quick explanation of what went wrong. Otherwise, they'd spend ages searching online or wait days for a teacher to point out the mistakes. So AI saves them a huge amount of time and helps them improve much faster. That said, if students use AI to write every essay for them instead of just fixing grammar issues, they slowly lose the ability to think and argue on their own. So the moment they sit an exam with no AI allowed, they freeze and can't put a single paragraph together.
Should children learn to use AI?
Yeah, I think children should definitely learn to use AI because it's going to be a basic skill in the future. Let me give you an easy example. Say a child is really into making short videos for social media. With AI, they can edit their own videos like a professional, adding the kind of cool effects that used to take adults years to learn. So they end up creating really impressive videos of their own and pick up real skills that could turn into a career one day. That being said, there's a risk too. If kids lean on AI for everything too early, they might never learn to think or solve problems on their own. So it has to be used in moderation.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of AI?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest disadvantage of AI is that it's taking away people's jobs. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a graphic designer who spent years building their skills and felt their job was completely secure. Then one day, their company finds an AI tool that can create dozens of designs in seconds for almost no cost. So they suddenly lay him off to save money. After all that hard work, he's left struggling to find a new job because AI can now do what he does much faster and cheaper. That being said, AI isn't all bad. For ordinary people, it's incredibly helpful, like instantly giving you a simple recipe based on whatever's left in your fridge.
Do you think people today should learn about AI technology?
Yeah, I definitely think people should learn about AI, mainly because it makes you so much more productive. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a YouTuber who needs a script for their next video. With AI, they can just type in a few prompts, and within minutes, they'll have a solid first draft, ready to polish. But if they had to write that same script completely on their own, it might take them a whole day doing research online. So learning AI completely changes how much content they can produce. That being said, it has a downside too. If people rely on AI too much, they may slowly become less creative because they stop coming up with their own ideas and just let the AI do the thinking for them.
How can AI help in our lives?
Honestly, I think one of the biggest ways AI helps is with people's mental health because it gives them someone to talk to. Let me give you an easy example. Say a guy has a high-paying tech job, but he secretly dreams of quitting to make music for YouTube. The problem is he has no one to share this with. His family would just push him to keep the safe job, and all his friends have stable careers, so they'd think he's crazy. So he feels completely alone with this dream. But now he can talk to AI about it anytime, and it listens without judging and even helps him think it through. That being said, AI can't fully replace real human connection. For a serious mental health problem, talking to a machine isn't enough, so you still need real people or a professional.
What can teachers do to stop students from relying too much on AI?
Honestly, I think the best thing teachers can do is design projects that AI can't fully do on its own. Let me give you an easy example. A teacher could ask students to interview a local shop owner about how their business is doing, then write a report on it. Although AI can help them finish the report afterward, during the interview they have to think for themselves. They can't just read out a list of fixed questions. They have to listen to the owner's answers and come up with follow-up questions on their own. So they pick up a real skill that AI can't do for them. That being said, teachers can also ask students to present their work in class. When they explain their ideas face-to-face, it's obvious whether they really understand it or just copied AI.
Do you think online communication through social media will replace face-to-face communication?
Yeah, I actually think social media will replace a large percentage of face-to-face communication. The main reason is that online, you can get attention from a huge number of people, whereas in a face-to-face chat, you only get attention from the few people sitting with you. Let me give you an easy example. Say a group of friends go to a cafe together. Even though they're sitting right next to each other, they may not talk that much. Instead, they spend most of their time taking photos of their coffee and food and posting them on Instagram, because that way they get likes and comments from hundreds of followers, rather than just a quick compliment from the 2 or 3 friends at the table. That being said, it won't replace face-to-face completely, since some people care more about having real, deep conversations with their close friends than getting likes from a load of strangers online.
Why do some people prefer sending a message instead of making a call?
Honestly, I think a lot of people prefer messaging for a good reason. It doesn't force the other person to answer straight away. Let me give you an easy example. Say you've just been laid off and you want to ask your friends if they know of any job openings. If you called them one by one, each friend would feel pressured to give you an answer immediately, even when they have no idea. But if you just message them, they can take their time, ask around at work, and only reply once they actually find a job opening for you. That being said, messaging isn't always better. When something is urgent, a quick call gets it sorted in seconds, whereas texting back and forth could take forever.
What do you think of communicating via social media?
Honestly, I think communicating via social media has one big advantage, which is that a single post can reach everyone you know at the same time. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone has just been laid off and needs a new job fast. Instead of calling friends one by one, they simply post about it on social media. Within hours, friends start commenting and sharing it, and an old colleague who sees the post messages them about an opening at his company. So one simple post does what dozens of phone calls never could. That being said, it has a downside too. When everything happens through quick comments and likes, conversations become shallow, and people slowly forget how to have a real, deep talk face-to-face.
Why do some people feel angry when others don't reply to their messages?
Honestly, I think people mostly get angry because they feel ignored. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone has just been laid off, and they send a message on Instagram to a close friend to ask if there are any job openings at the friend's company. A whole day passes with no reply, even though the friend keeps posting stories on Instagram. Because the matter is so urgent for them, that silence feels like the friend is ignoring them on purpose, so the anger builds up fast. That being said, some people never get angry about this, because they understand that everyone is busy with their own life, and a late reply usually doesn't mean anything personal.
In what situations do people spend a long time responding to others' messages?
Honestly, I think people take the longest to reply when a message puts them in an awkward spot. Let me give you an easy example. Say a friend messages you asking to borrow a big sum of money. You really don't want to lend it, but you also don't want to come across as mean or ruin the friendship. So you keep putting off the reply for hours, staring at the message, trying to think of a polite way to say no without hurting their feelings. That being said, people also take a while when the message needs real work first. If your manager asks you for a report, you can't reply until you've actually put it together, so the answer naturally takes time.
In what situations do people not respond to messages at all?
Honestly, I think people stop replying completely when someone becomes totally irrelevant to their life. Let me give you an easy example. Say you and a guy used to be colleagues. Back then, you were ambitious and wanted to climb the career ladder, while he was perfectly happy with an ordinary life. So he got married early and had kids, while you went abroad, earned a master's degree, and landed a job at a big tech company. Now your lives have nothing in common at all. So when he suddenly messages you, you just leave it because there's really nothing left to say to each other. That being said, people also never respond to all those ads piling up in their Gmail inbox. Companies send out endless promotional emails, but everyone knows there's no real person on the other end, so people just ignore them or delete them without a second thought.
What would you do if you did not receive a reply after sending out the message?
Honestly, it really depends on how urgent the message is. If it's something urgent and they still haven't replied, I won't just sit there staring at my phone. Let me give you an easy example. Say I'm doing a group project at school and I'm waiting for a classmate to send me his part of the research so I can finish the report. If the deadline is close and he still hasn't replied, I'd just call him directly because waiting any longer could make us miss the deadline. That being said, if it's nothing important, I'd simply let it go. I'd assume they're just busy with their own life and will reply whenever they get the chance, so there's no point chasing them and being annoying.
How do you show your respect in your messages?
Honestly, I think the main way I show respect is by replying quickly. Let me give you an easy example. Say a friend messages me asking if I want to grab dinner this weekend. If I reply right away, it shows I'm really excited to see him and to catch up on each other's week over dinner. But if I wait several hours to reply, he might think I'm not that interested, or that I'm trying to come up with an excuse to say no. So a quick reply is a simple way to show I care. That being said, I also show respect by reading someone's whole message carefully and replying to every part, so they never feel ignored or have to repeat themselves.
What do you think of people using their mobile phones during a meal?
Honestly, I think using phones during a meal can actually be a good thing in some situations. Take a company dinner where you're more or less forced to eat with colleagues you don't really have much in common with. Say you're single and you're into things like gaming, but most of your colleagues have a family and all they talk about is house prices and their kids. So once work is over, there's basically nothing you can chat about together. Instead of sitting there struggling to force some awkward conversation, you can just quietly scroll your own Instagram feed and look at the reels and pictures you're actually interested in. So your phone saves you from a lot of embarrassment. That being said, phones at a meal aren't always good. When you're having dinner with your family, staring at your phone the whole time means nobody talks, and everyone slowly drifts apart.
Do you think it's good to communicate when eating with your family?
Honestly, I think it's only good if you and your family share the same values. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a worker who hates his day job. His real dream is making music for YouTube, and he wants to quit and give it a try. But his family doesn't see it that way. Every time he brings it up at dinner, they push him to stay in his job because it provides a stable income. So the conversation quickly turns into an argument, and that ruins the dinner for everyone. That being said, when a family shares the same values, dinner talk is wonderful. He can share every little step of his dream, and the whole family cheers him on.
What kind of videos do people in your country like to watch?
Honestly, I'd say most people in my country are hooked on useless entertainment videos. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a warehouse worker who gets home completely drained after packing boxes all day. Instead of watching videos to learn new skills, they flop onto the sofa and start watching one lifestyle vlog after another, picturing that one day they could live that kind of life too, with the big house, the fancy holidays, and all the freedom. But they end up stuck in that same warehouse job for years, because all they ever do after work is watch those useless videos and never learn anything new. That being said, not everyone watches videos that way. Some people watch educational videos to genuinely grow, like learning how to use AI tools to work faster and get ahead at their job.
Do people where you live read the newspaper?
Honestly, very few people where I live still read an actual newspaper these days. Most get their news from social media instead, and in some ways, that's actually better. Let me give you an easy example. Say there's a serious car accident or a crime nearby. When that news shows up on social media, it's far more engaging than a newspaper because people can leave comments, reply to each other, and discuss it all together. And the more likes and comments it gets, the more it spreads. And maybe it will go viral and reach thousands of people. So far more people will end up hearing about it and staying alert to that kind of danger. That being said, a few people where I live do still read the newspaper because the news in it is usually more accurate and better researched. So anyone who wants the full, reliable story, rather than just quick reactions, still prefers a proper newspaper.
What makes the video go viral online?
Honestly, I think a video goes viral when millions of people can see themselves in it. Let me give you an easy example. A while ago, a saleswoman at a big tech company filmed her own layoff call and posted it on TikTok. In the video, two HR people she's never met tell her she's being let go, and they can't even explain why. It got millions of views overnight because so many workers fear exactly that, losing their jobs suddenly for no clear reason. So people kept commenting, sharing their own layoff stories, and sending it to friends. That being said, it's not always about emotion. Some videos go viral simply because they're so entertaining, like a short dancing video. People watch it again and again, and many even film themselves copying the dance.
Do most people think news about celebrities is boring?
Honestly, no. I think most people find celebrity news really interesting, sometimes even addictive. Let me give you an easy example. Take Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart from Twilight. They played a couple in the films and were dating in real life too. So millions of fans felt their on-screen romance was actually real. So when the news broke that they'd split up after a cheating scandal, fans were shocked and heartbroken. They jumped into the comments to take sides over who was wrong, and the story spread everywhere within hours. So instead of being boring, this kind of news keeps people hooked for days. That being said, some people really do find it boring, like those busy chasing their own goals, who just scroll straight past it.
Why are some young people not fans of superstars?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that these young people just aren't superficial. Let's say Kylie Jenner. They understand she's mostly popular because of how she looks, with a perfect face and a perfect body, but that kind of thing is shallow and fades away as she gets older. So instead, they look up to super successful entrepreneurs like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, because you can always learn something useful about life and work from reading books about them or watching their interviews. That being said, some young people aren't fans for a different reason. They'd rather follow relatable online creators because a self-made YouTuber who started from nothing and shares his real journey feels far more inspiring than a distant superstar living a life they could never relate to.
What skills can people learn from watching videos?
Honestly, I think you can learn almost any skill from videos these days, especially on YouTube, and it's all because of how YouTube pays its creators. Since creators earn ad money based on how many people watch, they compete to make the clearest, most helpful videos, so beginners actually stay and watch. Let me give you an easy example. Say you want to learn video editing. You can find a creator who walks you through every single step, from cutting clips to adding cool effects, explaining it so simply that even a total beginner can follow along, and it costs you nothing. That being said, watching alone isn't enough. You still have to actually practice what you watch, otherwise you forget it all the next day.
Why do some people like to watch sports events?
Honestly, I think the biggest reason is the excitement, because no one knows the result in advance. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a warehouse worker. His job is the same every day, packing box after box with no surprises at all. But on Saturday night, he watches a football match and anything can happen. His team scores a last-minute goal and he jumps off the sofa shouting. That moment of excitement is something his daily life never gives him. That being said, some people watch sports just to feel close to others. When the national team plays, even strangers in a bar cheer and hug each other after a goal.
Where do people normally watch sports events?
Honestly, I'd say it really depends on how much money people have. Think about low-income workers, like warehouse workers. The cost of living is so high these days that after they pay their rent and bills, there's barely anything left over. So spending money on an expensive stadium ticket is out of the question. They just watch it at home on their phone or TV instead, which costs them almost nothing. That being said, higher-paying workers, like those in tech, are a different story. They earn enough that the ticket price doesn't bother them. So they happily go to the stadium to watch big matches in person, because being there live in a huge cheering crowd is an experience that home can never match.
What are the advantages of watching sports events online?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest advantage is the flexibility, because you can watch from absolutely anywhere on your phone. Let me give you an easy example. Say there's a huge match on the weekend, but all of a sudden your boss calls you back to the office to deal with an urgent problem. In the old days, you'd miss the game completely, but now you can just stream it live on your phone on the way to work. So at least you catch part of it instead of missing it altogether. That being said, it's not just about flexibility. Online, you can also chat with thousands of other fans in the live comments, so it feels far more fun than watching alone at home.
What sports matches are suitable for children to attend?
Honestly, I'd say a lot of big matches actually aren't suitable for children, mainly because of the adults around them. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a parent taking their young son to a packed football stadium. The home team starts losing, and the men all around them get so angry that they shout dirty words at the players. A young child copies whatever he hears, so the next time something upsets him, he uses those same words himself. So that kind of match really isn't for children. That being said, some matches suit them perfectly. A short local basketball game is calm and full of action, so kids can just enjoy the sport itself.
Why do some people spend a lot going to other countries to watch sports events?
Honestly, I think for a lot of people, it's really about showing off their fancy lifestyle. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a football fan who who spends a fortune flying to Europe to watch a top match. The moment he's in the stadium, he films world-famous players live, the kind of stars ordinary people only ever get to see on TV, and posts it all on Instagram. Because it looks so expensive, he gets loads of likes. A photo from a small local match with teams nobody knows would never get that attention. That being said, some people go purely for the atmosphere, because being in a huge crowd of cheering fans is something you can't feel at home.
What sports games are popular in your country?
Honestly, I'd say the sports that become popular here are the ones that make our country look good on the world stage. Let me give you an easy example. Take swimming. It used to be dominated by Western swimmers, and hardly anyone here cared about it. But over the years, the government poured huge money into the sport, building world-class pools and bringing in top coaches from abroad. Slowly, our swimmers caught up, and once they started beating the West and winning gold medals at the Olympics, the whole country felt really proud and everyone was suddenly talking about it. That being said, not every popular sport is about national glory. Some are popular simply because they're cheap and easy, like badminton, which anyone can play in the park.
What are the popular water spots in your country?
Honestly, we've got some really beautiful lakes and beaches, but I'd say a lot of people don't actually use them the right way. Let me give you an easy example. Picture someone who travels hours to a famous lake, but the moment they arrive, all they care about is taking the perfect photo for Instagram. They spend the whole afternoon posing by the water, trying different angles and filters, and then they leave without ever swimming or even properly looking at the view. So they go all that way and never really enjoy the place at all. That being said, not everyone is like that. Some people go to these spots to genuinely relax, swimming, having a picnic, and spending real time with their family by the water.
Where do people in your country often go for holidays?
Honestly, I'd say a lot of people these days pick their holiday spot purely because it's gone viral on social media. Let me give you an easy example. Someone might see an influencer post a stunning photo of a little town, so they book a trip there straight away just to get the exact same shot for their own feed. But when they arrive, the place is completely packed with other tourists doing the same thing. So they spend the whole holiday queuing for photos instead of actually relaxing. So they come home more stressed than when they left. That being said, not everyone travels like that. Some people pick a quiet spot that nobody's posting about so they can completely switch off and come home feeling genuinely rested.
Going out to have holidays is tiring. Why do people still want to?
Holidays are definitely more exhausting than they used to be because a lot of people see them as a way to show off their fancy lifestyles online instead of relaxing. Let me give you an easy example. Picture someone who walks around Bali all day in the heat, completely worn out, but the moment they get a stunning photo, they post it straight to Instagram. Within minutes, they start getting tons of likes and comments, and all that attention makes the exhaustion feel worth it. So that's why so many people still go through it. For them, a holiday isn't really about relaxing. It's about looking impressive to everyone else. That being said, not everyone travels for show. Some people genuinely go just to switch off and relax, even though there is a lot of preparation to do before the trip.
How do people usually plan holidays?
Honestly, I'd say a lot of people now plan their holidays around cheap flight deals instead of picking a destination first. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone really wants a holiday but is on a tight budget. Instead of deciding where to go, they just open a flight app and scroll through the cheapest deals. When they spot a round-trip flight to Thailand for a really good price, they book it straight away, and then they start planning what to do once they get there. So the cheap deal decides the whole trip. That being said, some people still plan the careful, old-fashioned way. They pick the exact place they've always dreamed of, then spend weeks researching the best hotels and booking everything in advance.
Is it important to plan a holiday ahead?
Honestly, I don't think planning a holiday ahead is that important anymore, mainly because of AI. Let me give you an easy example. Say a friend suddenly invites you on a trip to Thailand next weekend. In the past, that's stressful. You have to spend days reading travel blogs and comparing hotels. But now, you just tell AI your dates and your budget. Within a minute, it gives you a full plan, with flights, hotels, and even a day-by-day schedule of what to see. You can just pack your bag and go. So even a last-minute trip feels easy and well-organized. That being said, planning ahead still has one real advantage. Flights and hotels are much cheaper when you book early, so it saves you quite a bit of money.
What is the ideal length for a holiday?
Honestly, I'd say the ideal length is about 1 week. The reason is that most ordinary people lack self-discipline. So if they take a very long holiday, they will quickly fall into a lazy lifestyle. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone takes a whole month off. After the first week, the excitement is gone. They start staying up late watching Netflix every night, so they sleep until noon the next day. Their whole routine falls apart. By the time the holiday ends, going back to work feels 10 times harder. That being said, a longer holiday is sometimes better. If you fly somewhere far away like Europe, 1 week is just not enough. By the time you recover from the jet lag, the trip is almost over.
Why do many countries try to attract people to visit?
Honestly, I think the biggest reason is money, because tourists spend much more freely than locals. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a coffee barista working in a small seaside town. In the quiet season, locals only buy a basic coffee, so the shop barely survives and her hours get cut. But in summer, tourists fill the town. They happily pay for the most expensive drinks and cakes because most people are willing to spend more when they're on holiday. The shop earns several times more, and she even gets extra shifts. So more tourists simply means more money and more jobs for local people. That being said, it's not all about money. When tourists go home with great memories, they talk about the country to everyone around them, so the whole world slowly becomes more friendly toward it.
Why do you think some people choose not to travel abroad?
Honestly, I think the biggest reason is money. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a warehouse worker. His salary is low, so after rent and bills, he only manages to save a little every month. And he can't touch those savings because more and more robots are being tested in his warehouse, and he knows automation may take his job one day. That small amount in the bank is all he has to survive on if he gets laid off. So a trip abroad is simply out of the question, since it can easily cost 2 months of his pay. That being said, some people stay home for a different reason. They don't speak any foreign language, so even simple things abroad, like ordering food, feel stressful, and the whole trip stops being fun.
How do people spend their leisure time in your country?
Honestly, I'd say a lot of people in my country now spend their leisure time taking photos for social media. Let me give you an easy example. Picture someone who spends their entire weekend traveling to trendy spots around the city, dressing up and taking hundreds of photos of themselves. By Sunday night, they're completely worn out. And even though they've got plenty of likes, they haven't actually relaxed at all. That being said, not everyone spends their free time like that. Some people switch their phones off and use it to pick up a real hobby, like learning the guitar.
In your country, do people like to spend their leisure time out?
Honestly, I'd say most people prefer to stay in these days, mainly because it's so hard to keep your job nowadays. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a young tech worker. Sure, he gets paid well, but that doesn't mean he can keep his job forever in this AI era, since he could be laid off tomorrow. So instead of going out and spending $100 on a movie, drinks, and dinner, he just stays home watching Netflix, which keeps him entertained for almost nothing. That way, he can save as much as possible in case he suddenly loses his job. That being said, some people still love going out, especially to see their friends in person, because no amount of texting can replace actually meeting up.
Do you think only old people have time for leisure?
Honestly, no. I don't think only old people have time for leisure. Younger people have plenty of it too. It's just that their leisure tends to be very passive and sedentary. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a young tech worker. After fixing bugs all day, he's completely drained. So the moment he gets home, he just wants to lie on the couch and scroll through funny short videos, rather than going out and doing anything active. By contrast, older people usually spend their free time outdoors. After retiring, they have all the time and energy in the world. So, for example, they head out for a long walk in the park every morning to keep themselves active and fresh.
Why do people like to have days off?
Honestly, I think it's because most people just hate their jobs. Let me give you an easy example. Think about warehouse workers. They do the job not because they like packing boxes, but because they have to earn an income to support themselves. 5 days a week, they're basically trading their time for a paycheck. So a day off is the only time their life actually belongs to them, when they can finally do whatever they enjoy without anyone telling them what to do, even if that's just sleeping in. That's why they look forward to it so much. That being said, some people like days off for a more positive reason. Even if they enjoy their work, they still want real time with their family, like taking their kids to the park.
What can people do when they feel bored?
Honestly, I think the best thing to do when you're bored is to use that time to learn a new skill. Let me give you an easy example. Say a warehouse worker who dreams of becoming a manager one day. Instead of scrolling his phone all afternoon, he opens YouTube and follows free tutorials on how to manage a warehouse and use the inventory software. After a few weekends, he's picked up real management skills, so he slowly gets closer to the promotion he wants. That being said, most ordinary people don't have that kind of discipline and willpower. The moment they feel bored, they just reach for their phone and scroll for hours instead.
Would you tell others if you change your plan?
Yeah, I definitely tell people if I change my plan, mainly because staying silent can really hurt someone. Let me give you an easy example. Say I've agreed to meet a friend for dinner, but something urgent suddenly comes up at work. If I just don't show up, he'd be left sitting alone at the restaurant, waiting and feeling embarrassed in front of the staff. So one quick message saves him from all of that. That being said, it depends who it is. For a big group event where me being there doesn't really matter, I might not bother telling everyone because a single message in a busy group chat just gets buried anyway.
What kind of plans do people often make?
Honestly, I'd say a lot of the plans people make are pretty pointless. Let me give you an easy example. Someone might spend days planning a big shopping trip, adding to their cart all the products they've seen influencers showing off on TikTok and Instagram. They end up spending most of their savings, but a month later, half of those things are just lying around at home, never used. So all that planning and money just goes to waste, all because some influencer made it look amazing. That being said, not everyone plans like that. Some people make really smart plans, like setting aside money every month to take an online course and learn a new skill. So their planning actually pushes their life forward.
Does everything need to be well prepared?
Honestly, I don't think everything needs to be perfectly prepared. Sometimes over-preparing actually stops you from ever getting started. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone wants to start their own YouTube channel. Instead of just filming a simple video on their phone, they spend months researching the perfect camera setup, waiting until everything is just right. But that perfect moment never comes. So a year later, they still haven't posted a single video, while someone less prepared has already built a big following. That being said, some things really do need careful preparation. You wouldn't walk into an important job interview without preparing, because turning up unready could easily cost you the job.
How can parents help children to be organized?
Honestly, I think the best thing parents can do is help their child find something they're truly passionate about. For example, if a kid hates school, you can't force him to be organized because he'll never keep his textbooks tidy for subjects he can't stand. However, if the parents notice the kid loves swimming and support him in training for it seriously, suddenly he gets really organized on his own. He keeps all his training gear in place and never misses a session because now he actually cares about getting better. He might even become more organized at school too, simply because he's no longer that unmotivated kid with nothing to care about. That being said, a simple system still helps for everyday things, like a checklist by the door so he never forgets his keys.
On what occasions do people need to be organized?
Honestly, I'd say people need to be organized at work all the time now, mainly because of AI. In the past, most workers had just one role, so the job was fairly simple, but now AI makes each worker far more productive. So companies don't need as many people, and instead, they want one worker to take on several roles at once. Let me give you an easy example. A tech worker today might have to do both the coding and the design, work that used to take two separate people. If he isn't organized, he'll lose track of everything and miss an important task. That being said, in your personal life, it matters far less. On a lazy weekend at home, you don't really need a plan at all.
Do people need others' help when organizing things?
Honestly, no, I don't think they do, because they can get far more professional advice on YouTube instead. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone feels overwhelmed at work and has no idea where to start. Instead of asking a colleague, they can watch videos from some popular productivity channels and pick up simple tips, like using Notion to keep all their tasks in one place, or Claude Desktop to organize the files on their computer. These are the exact tips the creators use to build their own successful channels, so they really work far better than anything your mediocre friends would tell you. That being said, for something big, you might still need a professional, like hiring a planner to organize a wedding.
How would you feel when you were not well prepared for something?
Honestly, it really depends on whether we're talking about the past or now. In the past, I'd be pretty anxious. If I had a big presentation and wasn't well prepared, I'd stay up all night trying to get everything ready, and I'd still walk in terrified that I'd forget my words in front of everyone. But now I don't think it's a big deal at all, because AI makes preparing so fast. The night before, I can just give AI my topic, and it'll draft my slides and key talking points in minutes, so I walk in calm and ready. That being said, AI can only prepare the materials, not my understanding. If I just read its slides without really knowing the topic, I'd still freeze the moment someone asks a tricky question.
Who tends to change their daily routine more, young or old people?
Honestly, I'd say old people actually change their routines more, which might sound surprising. Let me give you an easy example. Think about young warehouse workers. Their routine is basically locked in place because work decides everything. They get up early, pack boxes all day, come home worn out, and scroll their phones until they fall asleep. And that repeats for years. Even if they want to change something, like going to the gym in the morning, they're usually too tired to keep it up. Old people, by contrast, especially after retirement, finally have full control of their time. Many of them pick up something completely new, like dancing in the park or learning to paint, because they want to try everything they missed while they still can.
Is it good to arrive early in any situation?
Honestly, I don't think arriving early is good in every situation. Let me give you an easy example. Say a friend invites you to a dinner party at their home at 7. You show up at 6:30, thinking it's polite, but your friend is still cooking and the table isn't ready. Now they have to stop everything and entertain you while feeling embarrassed about the mess. So instead of helping, your early arrival just adds pressure. In situations like this, arriving right on time is actually the most polite thing you can do. That being said, in formal situations, arriving early is definitely good. For a job interview, getting there 15 minutes early gives you time to calm down, and it shows the company you really care.
How does technology help people make plans?
Honestly, I think the biggest way technology helps is that it can build a plan so personal that you actually stick to it. Let me give you an easy example. Say a warehouse worker who wants to lose weight. After packing boxes all day, he's completely worn out and has no energy to hit the gym. So instead of pushing some hard workout, an AI app suggests small, realistic changes, like switching from regular Coke to Diet Coke, or jogging around his neighborhood for 20 minutes. Because the plan actually fits his tired body, he can really keep it up. That being said, most ordinary people don't know how to ask AI the right questions. They don't know how to give it the right prompts. So they type in something vague and get a plan back that could be for anyone, not one that really fits their life.
Do you think children sometimes have to make important decisions?
Yeah, I think children sometimes face genuinely important decisions, especially about their career path. Let me give you an easy example. Some careers, like a professional swimmer, have to start really early. Picture a child who is naturally gifted at swimming. By the age of 10, she already has to decide whether to train for hours every day, giving up her friends and a normal childhood. Because if she waits until she's older, it will be too late to go professional. So that's a huge decision at such a young age. That being said, even children who won't become athletes still face important choices. At around 15, many must choose between science or the arts at school, and that decision already shapes which careers they can go into.
What important decisions do teenagers need to make after graduation?
Honestly, I think the biggest decision is whether to go to university at all. These days, a degree no longer guarantees a job. So many teenagers question whether it's worth taking out a huge student loan. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a teenager who's passionate about coding. Instead of spending 4 years and a fortune at university, he could teach himself for free on YouTube and with AI, then build his own app and start a small business. So his choice is between the traditional, expensive path and going out on his own, which could shape the next 10 years of his life. That being said, where to live is another big decision, like whether to move to a big city for work or stay near family.
Who can children turn to for help when making a decision?
Honestly, I'd say more and more children now turn to AI for help with their decisions. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a shy teenager who's passionate about dancing, but isn't sure whether to post her videos on TikTok. Instead of asking her parents and risking a lecture, she just types the whole problem into a chatbot because AI never judges her and replies instantly at any time of day. So she feels safe telling it things she would never tell a real person. That being said, relying on AI like this can be dangerous. There have even been tragic cases where a chatbot's advice led a struggling teenager to take their own life.
What kinds of occasions require people to arrive early?
I'd say the most common one is a morning meeting with your manager. Picture a tech worker who has a Zoom call with his boss first thing every morning. He doesn't want to just rush in and turn on his camera at the last second with nothing to say. So he gets to his desk early to get ready, going over exactly what he's going to report, like which bugs he fixed the day before, so his boss can see he's really done his work. That being said, meetings aren't the only occasions where you need to arrive early. A first date is the same, because turning up late and leaving the other person waiting makes them feel you don't really care.
Do people today prefer eating at home or in a restaurant?
Honestly, I'd say most people today prefer eating at home, and delivery apps are the main reason. Let me give you an easy example. Picture an office worker finishing work at 8, completely worn out. Instead of heading to a restaurant and waiting for a table, he can just go straight home and order food on a delivery app. With the time saved, he can take a hot shower, and by the time he's done, the food is already at his door, so he can enjoy it on the couch watching Netflix. That being said, people still prefer a restaurant when they want to catch up with old friends, because that lively atmosphere is something the home environment and delivery food can never provide.
Why are there special foods on special occasions or events?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that making a special food together is what actually brings the family closer on these occasions. Let me give you an easy example. Take Chinese New Year. Normally, everyone is too busy with work to even sit down together. But on that day, the whole family spends the whole afternoon making dumplings by hand, wrapping them together and chatting and laughing the whole time. So it's really that shared effort, not the dumplings themselves, that makes the reunion feel special. That being said, special foods also carry a lot of meaning. Dumplings are shaped like old gold ingots, so people eat them hoping the new year brings them wealth and good luck.
What are the differences between everyday food and festival food?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest difference is the purpose behind the food. Everyday food is really just fuel to keep you going. Let me give you an easy example. Take a tech worker on a normal workday. He's so busy fixing bugs that he just orders a quick delivery of fast food, then eats it alone at his desk in 10 minutes, so he can get straight back to work and still finish on time. Otherwise, he'd have to stay at the office for extra hours. By contrast, festival food is the complete opposite. On a day like Christmas, that same worker and his family spend the whole afternoon cooking a huge table of dishes, then sit down together for hours because the food isn't there to fill them up. It's an excuse to bring everyone together and enjoy some family time.
Are there any differences between the food people eat today and the food people ate in the past?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest difference is how processed our food has become. These days, a lot of what people eat is fast and ready-made. Let me give you an easy example. Take a warehouse worker today. After packing boxes all day, he's completely worn out and has zero energy to cook. So he just opens a delivery app and orders some fast food to his door. By contrast, people in the past ate far fresher food. My grandparents, for instance, had no delivery apps at all. So every single day, they bought fresh vegetables and meat from the local market and cooked everything from scratch. So even though their life was harder, their food was actually much healthier than what most people eat today.
What are the differences between special food in your country and other countries?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest difference is that our special foods really reflect our culture, which is all about sharing and staying close as a group. Let me give you an easy example. At a big celebration like Chinese New Year, all the dishes are placed in the middle of the table and everyone reaches in and shares from the same plates. Nobody has their own separate meal. It shows how much we value being together as one big family. By contrast, in many Western countries, special food is served differently. Everyone gets their own individual plate with their own portion, which fits their culture of valuing independence and personal space.
In your country, do people nowadays cook at home as frequently as people did in the past?
Honestly, no. People cook far less than they used to. Let me give you an easy example. Say you graduate with a computer science degree. To find a good job, you have to move to a big city, rent a small place, and live completely on your own. When you're cooking just for yourself, it just feels like a waste of time. You spend an hour shopping and cooking, but only 10 minutes actually eating, so most young people just order something quick instead. By contrast, in the past, people lived in big families under one roof, so one person could cook a single meal and feed 6 or 7 people at once. That made all the effort worth it, which is why home cooking was such a normal part of daily life back then.
Why do some people prefer to grow their own fruits and vegetables instead of buying them?
Honestly, I think it mostly comes down to free time, and people nowadays just don't have much of it. Let me give you an easy example. Think about warehouse workers. They are packing boxes all day and working extra hours. So by the time they get home, they are completely worn out. Plants need watering and care every single day. So even though they know that homegrown produce is healthier, they probably just don't have the time and energy to start a little garden. So they just buy everything from the supermarket. That being said, if one day they retire or become stay-at-home moms or dads, they would probably start growing their own food straight away because they could finally eat something healthy every day.
Why do some people like to grow plants?
Honestly, I think a big reason is that growing plants gives people a sense of achievement. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a stay-at-home mom. She cooks and cleans all day, and nobody ever says well done for any of it. So she starts growing tomatoes on her balcony, and when she picks her first tomato, she finally feels she's achieved something with her own hands. But people with a job, like tech workers, don't really need that kind of achievement from plants because they already get it every time they finish a big project at work. That being said, some people grow plants for a simpler reason. After a long day, watering a few pots of flowers helps them calm down and relax.
Do you think students should learn to grow plants?
Yeah, I think they should. Mainly because growing a plant teaches kids patience. Let me give you an easy example. These days, kids are used to getting everything instantly, like a video the second they tap the screen, or food at their door in minutes. But when a child plants a seed, at first nothing happens for days, and they have to keep watering it and waiting. Then, after a few weeks, the first tiny leaves finally appear, and they learn that some good things only come if you wait and keep putting in the effort. That being said, growing plants also shows city kids where their food actually comes from, instead of thinking vegetables just magically appear on a supermarket shelf.
Is it easy to grow plants at home?
Honestly, I'd say it's not as easy as it looks. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a young guy who sees a beautiful plant in some lifestyle vlog and instantly wants that same calm, green look in his own room. So he buys one, but he has no idea how to look after it. He either forgets to water it for days, or he panics and waters it way too much. And within a couple of weeks, the leaves turn yellow and it dies. So for a total beginner, keeping a plant alive is actually pretty hard. That being said, some plants really are easy to grow. Something like bamboo is almost impossible to kill and can grow in just a glass of water. So even the laziest person can keep it alive on their desk.
Do many people grow vegetables or flowers at home in your country?
Honestly, not that many people do, and it really comes down to space. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a young office worker who's just moved to a big city for work. Rents are so high that all he can afford is a tiny apartment with no balcony and no garden. So there's literally nowhere to put a single pot, let alone grow vegetables. So for people stuck in a small city apartment like him, growing your own food just isn't an option. That being said, it's a completely different story for older people back in the countryside. They own a house with a proper yard, so they grow all kinds of their own vegetables and flowers, and it becomes their main hobby once they retire.
Do you like to use public transport?
Yeah, I actually really like using public transport, mainly because the ride gives me free time. Let me give you an easy example. I take the subway to work every day, and the trip takes about half an hour. Since I don't have to focus on driving, I can put my earphones in and listen to a productivity podcast where experts share simple tips on managing time and staying focused. Over time, those little lessons have really helped me get more done at work. Although I could listen to podcasts while driving too, I probably wouldn't be able to concentrate as much as when I'm riding the subway. That being said, public transport isn't always pleasant. During rush hour, the subway gets so packed that you can barely move, and that's honestly pretty stressful.
Do you think the highways will help reduce traffic jams?
Honestly, I don't think building more highways really reduces traffic jams in the long run. The problem is that new highways just encourage more people to drive. Let me give you an easy example. Say the city builds a big new highway, and at first the traffic flows smoothly. But once high-income workers like tech workers see how fast the drive is, they buy a car and drive to work instead of taking the subway. Because on their high salaries, a car is easily affordable. So within a year or two, that new highway is just as jammed as the old roads. That being said, highways still help in some ways. They make it much faster to move goods between cities, so trucks don't get stuck in heavy traffic in the city center.
Do you think developing public transport can solve traffic jam problems?
Honestly, I don't think developing public transport can really solve traffic jams. Think about who is actually driving on the road. Low-income workers, like warehouse workers, already take the subway. It's the cheapest way to get to work. The jams are mostly created by high-income workers. Like those in big tech or finance, they drive to the office every day. Even if the city develops public transport, they probably won't use it. They earn good money, so they care more about comfort. To them, sitting in their own quiet car is much better than standing in a packed train with strangers. That being said, it still helps a little. As the city grows, good public transport at least stops new workers from adding even more cars to the road.
Would you rather be in a car or bus in a traffic jam?
Honestly, I'd rather be in my own car in a traffic jam. It's simply way more comfortable. Let me give you an easy example. When I'm stuck in a jam in my car, I just put on a podcast. I sit in my own quiet space with the air conditioning set exactly how I like it. So the jam actually becomes free time to learn something new. But if I'm on a bus, it's a totally different story. The bus is usually packed during rush hour. I have to stand the whole time, and people around me are talking loudly, so I can't focus on anything at all. That being said, the bus has one small advantage. I don't have to drive, so when I get a seat, I can even close my eyes and rest.
How can we solve the traffic jam problem?
Honestly, I think the best way is to let high-paying workers work from home because they're the main cause of traffic jams. Think about who's actually driving. Low-wage workers, like warehouse workers, can't afford a private car, so they already take the subway every day. The roads are mostly packed with high earners, like people in big tech or finance, who all drive to the office. So if their companies let them work from home, that's a huge number of cars gone every single day. And the jams ease up a lot. That being said, charging drivers to enter the city center helps too. When people have to pay a fee every time they drive in, even some of those high earners think twice and switch to the subway.
Why do most children think education is boring?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that school just can't compete with what kids watch on their phones. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a kid who spends every evening watching short videos, where something exciting, like dancing, happens every few seconds. The next morning, he sits in a history class, where the teacher just reads slowly from a textbook for 45 minutes. Compared to those videos, the class feels slow and boring, so he stops paying attention within minutes. That being said, education itself isn't the problem. When a teacher turns that same history lesson into a fun quiz game with the whole class joining in, the kids suddenly love it. So it really comes down to how the lesson is taught.
Why is it easier for children to learn new things than for adults?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that children can go all in on whatever they're learning. Let me give you an easy example. Say a kid gets into swimming. He trains after school every day and spends his weekends at the pool because his parents take care of everything else, like cooking and laundry. With that kind of focus, he improves incredibly fast. But adults have too many responsibilities. Even work alone can drain all their energy. By the time they get home, they're too tired to learn a new skill. They just lie on the sofa and scroll their phone. That being said, children also learn faster because they're naturally curious. They ask why about everything, so learning feels like a game rather than work.
Why are some teachers' classes boring?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that a lot of teachers don't actually love teaching. They're only in the job for the paycheck, so they put in the least effort possible. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a history teacher who doesn't enjoy his job at all. He just reads straight from the textbook and tells students to memorize a list of dates and facts for the exam. He never tells the stories behind those events or explains why they matter, so the whole class feels dead. That being said, it's not only about passion. Even teachers who care can be boring because they're forced to rush through a huge amount of material for exams, so they've got no time to make the lessons interesting.
Are there any solutions to boring classes?
Honestly, I think there's not much we can do about teachers who don't love their job. Unless they decide to quit, they'll keep teaching in that dull way no matter what. So the real solution is for students to take learning into their own hands. Let's continue with the history example. Instead of giving up on the subject, they can go on YouTube and find creators who turn history into exciting stories, almost like a movie. Suddenly, the same topic becomes fascinating, and they learn far more than they ever did in class. The same can be said for other subjects like chemistry or physics. There are always people who are truly passionate about those areas, sharing their knowledge in an interesting way on YouTube. That being said, schools can still help by replacing teachers who clearly don't care.
How important is it for schools to help children become smarter?
Yeah, I'd say it's really important for schools to make children smarter, but being smart today means something totally different from before. In the past, a smart kid was just someone who could memorize tons of facts, like every history date or maths formula. But now AI does all that in seconds, so being smart in that way is almost useless. To be truly smart in this AI era, you have to know how to work with AI. Let me give you an easy example. A teacher should teach children how to do research using AI, like how to write clear prompts and how to check facts themselves instead of blindly trusting the answer. That's the real intelligence companies want now. That being said, schools still need to teach the basics too, because without simple reading and maths, a child can't even tell whether the AI is right.
Some people think technology has made it unnecessary to learn languages. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say technology really has made learning a language much less necessary for a lot of people. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone goes to Japan for a one-week holiday, and they don't speak a single word of Japanese. In the past, they'd struggle to even order food. But now they can just speak into their phone, and the app instantly talks back to the waiter in Japanese for them. So the whole trip runs smoothly without them ever studying the language. That being said, technology still can't replace actually learning a language. If that same person moved to Japan to live and work, an app wouldn't be enough because they'd need to really speak it to make close friends and be taken seriously at work.
Which is better, to study a language alone or to study it in a group? Why?
Honestly, I'd say studying alone is better these days, mainly because it costs so much less. Let me give you an easy example. If you study with an AI app, you just pay a monthly or yearly subscription fee, and you can practice as many times as you want. For example, even if the app corrects your pronunciation 1,000 times a month, it still costs you nothing extra. But if you study in a group, you pay for every single lesson while you only get a few hours of practice a week. So studying alone gives you far more practice for much less money. That being said, studying in a group has one real advantage, which is motivation. When you study alone, it's easy to quit. But when your friends show up every week, you push yourself to keep going.
Does speaking other languages help at work?
Honestly, I'd say speaking other languages isn't as helpful at work as it used to be, mainly because of AI. Let me give you an easy example. Say your company wants to reach customers overseas. In the past, they'd have to hire someone who actually speaks that language, but now they can just use AI to create Instagram posts or Facebook ads in the language of that overseas market, without hiring a single translator. Even when foreign customers send messages, AI can translate and reply within seconds. So that language skill on your resume just isn't as valuable as before. That being said, languages still help in certain situations, like face-to-face business meetings, because chatting with clients in their own language builds a kind of trust that AI translation can never create.
What is the best way to learn a language?
Honestly, I'd say the best way to learn a language now is to use AI, mainly because it's so flexible and fits right into your schedule. Let me give you an easy example. Say a busy office worker whose hours keep changing. If he signs up for a class, it's at a fixed time every week. He may not be able to make it when he has to work extra hours or when he's overworked and too tired to focus. But with an AI app, there's no fixed time at all. He can practice for 10 minutes on the subway, a bit more while waiting for his coffee, and a little before bed. So even with a packed schedule, he still gets plenty of practice. That being said, practicing with a machine can leave you unmotivated. If that's the case, it's better to practice with real people instead.
What difficulties do people face when learning a language?
Honestly, I'd say the biggest difficulty is simply not having enough time. Learning a language itself is pretty easy these days, with all the free YouTube tutorials and AI apps out there. The real problem is fitting it into a busy life. Let me give you an easy example. Take a tech worker. His work hours are never fixed. Whenever there's a big deadline coming up, he ends up working late every single night for weeks, and by the time he gets home, he's completely drained. So even though he really wants to learn, he can never study consistently, and without that regular practice, he barely makes any progress. That being said, even if you do have the time, you often lack the motivation, because learning a language takes real self-discipline. After a long day, it's so much easier to just chill and watch Netflix than to use up your brain power studying.
Do you think language learning is important? Why?
Yeah, I definitely think learning a language, especially English, is really important, mainly because it opens up a whole world of knowledge. Let me give you an easy example. Say someone wants to learn a new skill, like editing videos. If they only speak their own language, they're stuck with a handful of low-quality local tutorials. But the moment they understand English, they can suddenly learn from the best creators in the world on YouTube, who explain exactly how to create those cool special effects step by step. So knowing English lets them grow much faster than everyone around them. That being said, it's not only about knowledge. Speaking another language also lets you make real friends when you travel, instead of just smiling and pointing at things.
Do people learn any languages other than English?
Yeah, some people do, but usually only when they have a strong personal reason. Let me give you an easy example. A lot of teenagers these days get completely hooked on K-pop music. They listen to it every single day, and after a while, they really want to understand the lyrics and sing along with their favorite artist. So they start teaching themselves Korean, just because they love the music that much. That being said, these people are still the minority. Most people never bother with a third language because English already covers almost everything they need online and at work, so there's little point spending years on another one.
What is the most important thing for learning a language well?
Honestly, I'd say the most important thing is consistency, practicing a little every single day rather than a lot once in a while. Fortunately, AI apps now make that possible. In the past, it was really hard to find a partner to practice with every day, so most people quickly gave up. But now you can have a real conversation with an AI app anytime. Let me give you an easy example. A busy tech worker can just practice for 15 minutes every night before bed. And because he never breaks that habit, after a year, he ends up surprisingly fluent. That being said, the app alone isn't enough. You still need the discipline to actually open it every day, instead of just collapsing on the sofa and watching Netflix.
Do you think school rules are important?
Yeah, I think school rules are really important, especially now that every student has a phone. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a student who is addicted to short videos. Without a rule, he keeps his phone under the desk and watches TikTok during class. He learns nothing, and his grades keep dropping. But if the school forbids students from using phones during classes, there is nothing to distract him anymore. He slowly starts paying attention again, and his grades recover. That being said, schools shouldn't have too many rules. When every little thing is controlled, like the exact color of students' socks, the rules stop protecting students and just make school feel like a prison.
How can parents teach children to obey rules?
Honestly, I think the best way is to set a clear rule with a consequence and stick to it. Let me give you an easy example. Say a kid is addicted to short videos and keeps watching on his phone long past bedtime. His parents can make a simple rule. If he turns off his phone by 9, he gets extra game time at the weekend. But if he doesn't, they take his phone away. Because that reward actually matters to him, he slowly starts following the rule on his own. That being said, explaining the reason works too. When parents calmly tell him why sleep matters for his grades and his health, he understands the rule instead of just fearing the punishment. So he may be more likely to stick to the rule even when no one is around.
How can parents and teachers help children understand and follow rules?
Honestly, I think the most important thing is to offer children something more interesting than breaking the rule. A lot of children don't follow rules simply because following them is boring. Let me give you an easy example. If a teacher bans phones during class, students may still sneak a look and watch short videos because that's far more entertaining than the lesson. So instead of just forcing them to put their phones away, teachers should make their classes more engaging. For example, a teacher can turn a dull history lesson into a quiz game, so students get so into the game that they forget their phones. That being said, punishment still matters. When there's a clear penalty for breaking a rule, like losing break time, students think twice before doing it.
How does technology affect the law?
Honestly, I'd say technology constantly forces the law to make new rules because it keeps creating problems that didn't exist before. Let me give you an easy example. Think about Instagram and teenagers. Many teenage girls spend hours every night scrolling through beauty influencers showing off perfect bodies and perfect lives. Slowly, they start hating how they look, can't sleep, and their grades fall apart. Stories like this got so common that the government had to step in and force Instagram to protect teens. Now their accounts are private by default, and they don't get notifications late at night. Without that legal pressure, Instagram would never have done it on its own. That being said, the law often moves too slowly. By the time those rules came in, millions of teens had already been harmed.
What kinds of rules do schools in your country have? What rules should students follow at school?
Honestly, the most common rule in schools in my country is that every student must wear a uniform. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a kid from a low-income family. Without this rule, his rich classmates would show up in brand new sneakers and designer jackets, while he'd wear the same old clothes every day. Other kids would make fun of him for looking poor, so he'd feel ashamed walking into class and lose all focus on his studies. But because every student wears the exact same uniform, nobody can tell who's rich and who's not, so he can just focus on learning. That being said, we also have a rule that bans phones in class. Without it, students would just watch short videos under the desk all lesson long instead of paying attention.
Will there be a law that is universally accepted?
Honestly, I think most laws will never be accepted by every country because different countries care about different things. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a tech worker who gets laid off because AI can now do his job. In the US, he could be let go the same day with just his final paycheck because the law puts the company and the economy first, so businesses can cut staff anytime to stay competitive. But in many European countries, that same worker would get a big payout because the law puts the worker first and makes companies support the people they let go. So the same situation is handled in completely opposite ways. That being said, a few laws come close to being accepted worldwide. Almost every country now punishes factories that pollute, because dirty air and water harm everyone.
What environmental laws does your country already have?
Honestly, I'd say one of our main environmental laws is a ban on littering at tourist spots, mainly to protect tourism. Let me give you an easy example. Think about those famous scenic lakes. There's a strict law that you can't throw any rubbish into the water. If tourists were allowed to, the lake would slowly turn dirty and start to smell, so fewer people would come to visit. And once the tourists stop coming, the local businesses lose money, and the government collects far less tax. So to protect that income, they made the law and fine anyone who breaks it. That being said, we also have strict laws on factories. A factory near a river isn't allowed to dump its waste into the water, and if it does, it can be fined heavily or even shut down.
Are children unhappy with the school rules?
I'd say children are often unhappy with school rules, especially the ones that stop them from doing what they love. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a teenager who's really into making short videos. Filming himself and his friends doing some dance moves during the lunch break helps him express himself and connects him with other young creators who share the same passion. But his school bans phones all day, so he can't film anything, and he feels the rule is stopping him from doing the one thing he truly enjoys. That being said, there are some rules children are actually happy with. Take the rule that punishes bullying. It means a smaller, weaker kid won't get bullied every day, so he can feel safe at school and focus on learning.
What are the rules people should obey at work?
Honestly, I'd say one important rule at work is to never criticize your employer in public. If you attack your company online, the boss will see you as disloyal and look for a way to get rid of you. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a company announces big layoffs, and one worker gets so angry he writes a long post online, calling his boss greedy and saying the company only cares about profit. The post goes viral, getting thousands of likes. But instead of helping him, it just makes him look like a troublemaker, so the company soon finds an excuse to fire him too. That being said, we shouldn't always follow this rule. If a company is hiding something dangerous, like a safety problem that could hurt people, speaking out is the right thing to do.
What is the purpose of punishment?
Honestly, I'd say the main purpose of punishment is to stop people from doing the wrong thing in the first place. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a delivery driver who's always tempted to speed, because the faster he goes, the more deliveries he can finish. But he knows that if he gets caught speeding, he'll pay a huge fine and could even lose his license, which means losing his whole income. So that fear keeps him driving safely. That being said, some punishments have no real purpose at all. Take a kid who keeps failing maths and gets punished for it. He fails simply because he has no passion for the subject and doesn't want to study at all. Punishing him won't help. It only makes him hate the subject even more and give up completely.
Do people in your country usually obey the law?
Honestly, I'd say most people in my country do obey the law, partly because breaking it can destroy your whole life these days. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a man gets into a fight on the road and punches another driver. Someone nearby films the whole thing on their phone, and within hours it goes viral with millions of views. People quickly find out who he is and where he works, and his company fires him straight away to protect its reputation. So one moment of breaking the law costs him his job and his name. That being said, people still break the smaller laws when no one is filming. On a quiet street with no cameras, many will happily cross on a red light because they know there's no way to get caught.
What kinds of behavior are considered good behavior?
Honestly, I'd say the best kind of good behavior is doing something that pushes society forward, even when it costs you personally. Let me give you an easy example. A while ago, some employees at Instagram saw the company's own research showing that Instagram was harming teenage girls, making many of them feel worse about their bodies. Instead of staying quiet to protect their jobs, they leaked it to the public. Because of that, the government stepped in and forced Instagram to better protect young users. So a few brave people improved life for millions of teenagers. That being said, good behavior doesn't have to be that dramatic. Even something small, Like a young man giving up his seat for an elderly woman on a packed subway counts as good behavior too.
Do you think children can learn about the law outside of school?
Honestly, I don't think children should rely on learning about the law outside school, because what they pick up there is often not the complete story. Let me give you an easy example. On social media, there are lots of viral videos of teenagers attacking a stranger and then running away laughing. A kid watching these clips might think those teens got away with it, so you can hurt someone and never get punished. But what the videos don't show is that many of those teenagers were later caught by the police and punished. So the kid ends up with a totally wrong idea of how the law works. That being said, social media isn't always misleading. Sometimes a video shows the whole story, including the punishment, and then a child really can learn the right lesson from it.
What are the benefits for people to obey rules?
Honestly, I think the biggest benefit is that rules create a fair environment where the people who actually put in the effort are the ones who get rewarded. Let me give you an easy example. Say you spend years building a YouTube channel and finally hit 100K subscribers. Without any rules, other people could just steal your videos and re-upload them on their own channels. So they grow their own channel effortlessly and earn ad revenue, even though you were the one who did all the hard work. But because copyright rules exist, your work is protected, and you're the one who gets the rewards you deserve. That being said, obeying rules also keeps daily life running smoothly. When everyone follows the traffic lights, traffic keeps moving, and people actually get to work on time.
What should a leader do to make team members want to follow him or her?
Version A. Honestly, I think the most important thing is that a leader makes sure the team gets the credit instead of taking it all for themselves. Let me give you an easy example. Say a team spends months on a big project, and it turns out to be a huge success. A weak manager would tell the boss it was all his own work, but a good leader does the opposite. He makes sure every member's effort is noticed and pushes for them to get bonuses or promotions. When people see their leader fighting for them like that, they trust him and will happily follow him next time. That being said, a leader also needs a clear vision, so the team knows what they're working toward and feels inspired. Version B. Honestly, I'd say the worst thing a leader can do is watch the team's every move, because it instantly kills any loyalty. Let me give you an easy example. At companies like Amazon and Tesla, warehouse and factory workers are tracked constantly. Software records how many seconds they spend on each task, and if they slow down even slightly, they get a warning. So the workers feel like machines being monitored rather than people, and many of them are probably already looking for another job. In contrast, a good leader trusts his team and treats them with respect, giving them freedom to work their own way, so they feel valued and genuinely want to follow him.
Should students learn to do group work?
Version A. Yeah, I definitely think students should learn group work, because the most useful lesson isn't the subject, but how to deal with difficult people. Let me give you an easy example. In almost every school project, one lazy member does nothing and just puts their name on the final work. So the others learn to set clear roles right at the start, giving that lazy person a specific job they can't escape. That way, everyone knows their responsibility, and he can't sit back and take advantage of the others. That's exactly what happens in any real job, so learning it early is really valuable. That being said, group work still isn't always fair, because the grade is usually shared, so a lazy member can still end up with the same mark. Version B. Honestly, I'd say group work isn't as important for students as it used to be, because it's becoming less important in the workplace. Let me give you an easy example. In the past, finishing a big project at a company meant a whole team had to work together, each handling a different part. But now, a single employee can do it all alone by setting up AI agents to take on the different tasks, like having one do the research while another builds the report. So companies rely far less on teamwork now. And if it matters less at work, there's less reason for students to learn it either. That being said, group work still teaches you how to deal with real people, which AI can't replace, and most jobs still need that.
What group tasks are there in schools?
Honestly, the most common group task in schools is the group presentation, where a team prepares some slides and presents them to the class. The strange thing is, this skill may not actually help much at work, For example, some top companies like Amazon have started to drop presentations from their meetings altogether. The reason is that a slideshow forces everyone to go through the slides one by one, so the discussion gets stuck in a fixed path. Instead, these companies let the conversation go wherever it naturally leads, because that's often where the best ideas come from. So it's a bit ironic that schools train students so hard in something the top companies are now moving away from. That being said, presentations aren't completely useless. They still give students the confidence to speak in front of others, which you'll need in plenty of jobs.
What advantages are there for students experiencing teamwork at school?
Honestly, I think the biggest advantage is that students learn how much more they can achieve by combining their different strengths. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a science project with two very different students. One is shy but brilliant at the research, while the other is weak at the details but great at explaining things to the class. On their own, each would only manage half a project, but together they produce something really impressive. And each one picks up a bit of what the other is good at. So they learn that a team can do far more than any individual. That being said, teamwork also teaches them to compromise, because when two people disagree, they have to talk it through and find a solution they both accept.
What effect does working from home have on people's lives?
Well, I'd say it has a few drawbacks. The main one is that when you work from home, you end up isolated from other people, so you don't draw inspiration or aspirations from those around you. Take someone who dreams of making a living by producing music for YouTube. If they worked at a company, they might see one of their colleagues do something similar, like quitting a job, posting content online, and slowly building up enough fans to earn a living from it. Seeing that right in front of them would make them believe it's possible and push them to try it themselves. That being said, working from home does have its upside. You save the time you'd normally spend commuting, and you can put that straight into your work, so you get more done.
Why do some people start their own business?
Honestly, I think a big reason is that people have realized a job isn't as safe as it looks. Let me give you an easy example. Think about workers at big tech companies. Deep down, many of them know that one day AI could take over their work, and they'll be laid off. So while they still have the job, they already start a side hustle, like a YouTube channel. Once the channel earns enough to support them, whether through ads or sponsorships, they just quit. That is to say, having your own business is actually more stable than a corporate job, because no one can ever fire you. That being said, some people start a business for a happier reason. They simply have a passion, like baking, and want to turn it into a living.
Do you think customer satisfaction is important for a company?
Yeah, I'd say customer satisfaction is absolutely vital for a company, because these days, one unhappy customer can hurt a brand overnight. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a small coffee shop where a barista gets an order wrong and then argues with the customer instead of fixing it. The customer films the whole thing and posts it on TikTok, and within a day, the video goes viral, with thousands of people saying in the comments that they will never go there. The shop depends completely on local customers, so its sales drop fast. That being said, satisfaction matters a bit less for some companies, like the subway in a big city, because even when it's packed and uncomfortable every morning, people still have to take it to get to work.
Do most people prefer shopping at big stores or small stores?
Honestly, I'd say most people prefer big stores, mainly because they can get everything done in one trip. Let me give you an easy example. Think about warehouse workers. They are packing boxes all day and often working extra hours. So by the weekend, they are completely worn out. When they finally have time for shopping, they just want to drive to a big supermarket and get all the groceries for the whole week in one place, then go straight home and rest. If they go to small stores instead, they have to walk from shop to shop, and that will make shopping feel like another shift of work. That being said, some people still prefer small stores, like a little fruit shop near home, because the owner knows them and always picks out the freshest fruit for them.
In your country, what industry is it easier to be successful in?
Version A. Honestly, I'd say the easiest industry to succeed in these days is online content and social media. Let me give you an easy example. Picture a young guy who's really into fitness and is in amazing shape. He starts filming short workout videos in his own bedroom. with nothing but his phone. He doesn't need a gym or much money to begin. If just one of his videos goes viral, he can gain thousands of followers overnight, and fitness brands will start paying him to promote their products. So anyone with real talent has a genuine shot at making it. In contrast, the traditional fitness industry is much harder. Opening your own gym takes a fortune for the space and equipment, and it only reaches the few people living nearby. Version B. Honestly, I'd say the easiest industry to succeed in these days is online content and social media. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a software engineer who's just been laid off. After years in the field, he knows AI really well. So he can easily start a YouTube channel teaching people how to use AI tools or even build their own AI agents. He doesn't need any money to begin, just his phone and his knowledge. Once his videos take off, he can earn from ads and sponsorships, sometimes more than his old salary. So his expertise instantly becomes a brand new career. In contrast, the traditional tech industry is much harder. Building an actual company takes investors and years of hard work before you earn a single cent.
What makes a business successful?
Honestly, I think the most important thing is solving a real problem that lots of people have. Let me give you an easy example. Think about food delivery apps. They became huge because they solved a real everyday problem. After a long day at work, millions of people are too tired to cook or go out, but they still need to eat. The app fixes that perfectly, bringing hot food right to their door without them ever leaving the sofa. Because it solves something so many people struggle with, it spread incredibly fast. That being said, solving a problem isn't quite enough on its own. The founders also have to be persistent, because in the early days, almost nothing works, and most people would give up long before the business takes off.
What makes a business fail?
Honestly, I think a big reason businesses fail today is that AI can suddenly offer the same thing for a fraction of the price. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a small language school that teaches local people foreign languages face-to-face. For years, anyone who wanted to learn well had no choice but to pay a lot for these classes. But now, AI apps let you practice real conversations anytime for just a small monthly subscription. So almost overnight, those classes feel overpriced, and students stop signing up, no matter how good the teachers are. That being said, some businesses fail for a more ordinary reason. They grow too fast, opening new branches before they can really afford it. So the moment sales drop, they run out of cash.
Is it easy to set up a new business in your country?
Honestly, I'd say setting up a business has never been easier. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a young guy who wants to sell custom phone cases. In a single afternoon, he can open a shop on a selling platform like Amazon or eBay, with no money, no office, and no staff at all. He just uploads his designs there, and he's ready to sell. For marketing, he simply films a few short videos of his cases and posts them on Instagram and TikTok, which also costs him nothing. So getting started really is that simple. That being said, easy to start also means brutal competition. Thousands of people sell almost identical cases. So he gets buried under cheaper sellers, and most shops like his disappear within months.
Should the government provide financial support to startups?
Yeah, I definitely think the government should support startups because most people with good ideas simply don't have the money to get started. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a coffee barista who has worked in a cafe for years and knows exactly what customers love. They dream of opening their own coffee shop, but on a barista's salary, they have almost no savings, and banks won't lend them much either. If the government gave them a small fund to get started, they could rent a little shop, hire a couple of staff, and even create new jobs for the local area. That being said, the government needs to be careful, because giving money to every idea means some people will just waste it. And that's taxpayers' money after all.
Do you think companies should donate money to help society?
Yeah, I think companies should definitely donate. And these days, it actually helps the company as much as society. Let me give you an easy example. Say there's a big flood in a city, and a local drinks company sends free bottled water and hot drinks to the rescue workers. Someone films it and posts it online, and the video goes viral, with thousands of people liking it and praising the brand in the comments. So the donation genuinely helps people in trouble, and at the same time, it wins the company more trust and more customers than any expensive ad could. That being said, companies shouldn't be forced to donate, because a small business that's barely surviving could be pushed into real trouble by that kind of pressure.
Do you think it's important to have a national identity?
Yeah, I think national identity is really important because it quietly shapes how people live. Let me give you an easy example. Consider Americans and their hustle culture, where working hard and chasing success is a core part of who they are. That's why YouTube is full of day-in-the-life videos made by software engineers at Google and Meta. Even with well-paid jobs, they still make time to film videos to build a side income. When basically a whole country hustles like this, it all adds up. And that's a big part of why the US is the biggest economy in the world. That being said, national identity isn't always that important. When people work online with others from all over the world, nobody really cares where you're from, only whether you can do the job well.
How can people develop their national identity?
Honestly, I think the main way people develop national identity is through what schools teach them when they're young. Let me give you an easy example. Think about a primary school kid in my country. In history class, he learns the story of how the nation fought through wars and was finally built by ordinary heroes who sacrificed everything. Hearing these stories again and again, he slowly grows proud of where he comes from and feels he truly belongs. That being said, big national moments matter too. When our athletes compete at the Olympics, the whole country watches together and celebrates as one, and that shared pride makes everyone feel part of the same nation.
Do you think the government should provide financial support to companies?
Honestly, I think the government should support companies, but only when their product benefits society as a whole. Take electric car makers, for example. When the government gives them loans, they can build bigger factories and improve their battery technology so they can produce cheaper, better cars. As a result, far more people switch from petrol cars to electric ones. And over time, the air in big cities becomes much cleaner. So that loan ends up helping everyone, not just the company. That being said, the government shouldn't rescue a company that's failing simply because it stopped innovating. Just look at Nokia. It kept making the same basic phones while rivals moved to smartphones, so it quickly fell behind and vanished. Saving a company like that just wastes public money.
Why do you think parents still make plans for their children nowadays?
Honestly, I think the main reason is that parents today are scared their children will fall behind. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a mother scrolling on social media, and she keeps seeing her friends proudly posting videos of their kids winning piano competitions. Those posts slowly make her anxious, so she plans out her child's whole weekend with piano lessons, hoping the kid won't lose out to others. So a lot of the planning isn't really about the child at all. It comes from the pressure parents feel from each other. That being said, some parents make plans for a better reason. They simply know more about the world than their kids do. So a little planning genuinely saves the child from some bad choices.
Whose opinions are more important to children, their parents, or teachers?
Honestly, I'd say teachers' opinions are actually more valuable these days. The thing is, a lot of parents nowadays only raise one child, so they don't have much experience, while teachers deal with hundreds of kids every single day. Let me give you an easy example. Say a young girl wants to make short videos and post them on TikTok. Her parents might think it's harmless and just let her do it. But a teacher who's seen hundreds of students would understand the real danger because she's watched kids get hooked on chasing likes and views, checking their phones every few minutes, so their grades slowly drop. That being said, parents still matter more in some ways, since they know their own child's personality far better than any teacher ever could.
Do children communicate more with teachers or parents?
Honestly, I'd say children communicate far more with their parents, simply because of how much time they spend together. Let me give you an easy example. At dinner, a kid naturally chats to his parents about his day, like what game he played or what his friends were up to. With a teacher, it's completely different. He only sees them during class, alongside 40 other students, so there's barely any chance for a real one-on-one conversation. That being said, for certain sensitive things, Some kids actually open up more to a teacher. If a child is being bullied but is scared his parents will overreact, he might quietly tell a teacher he trusts instead.
Who do young people like to share opinions with?
Honestly, I'd say young people much prefer sharing their opinions with like-minded people online rather than with the family or friends around them. Let me give you an easy example. Say a young guy dreams of quitting his office job to make music for YouTube. If he shares this with his family, they just tell him he's crazy and push him to keep his safe job, and his friends with stable careers would think the same. So instead, he joins an online community full of people chasing the exact same dream, where he can talk about it openly and actually get real support. That being said, for smaller, everyday things, they still share with close friends, like chatting about a new show they all watched over the weekend.
When do most children begin to have their own opinions?
Honestly, I think children today form their own opinions quite late, and social media is the main reason. Let me give you an easy example. A 12-year-old girl might spend hours watching influencers every day, so she just copies whatever they say, like believing she needs to lose weight or wear makeup to look good. As a result, she ends up feeling unhappy about her looks and loses her confidence, even though she's a perfectly normal, healthy kid. That being said, parents can help children form their own opinions much earlier by teaching them solid values like hard work, so kids can judge for themselves whether what influencers show them is worth following.
Do you think being a doctor is easy or difficult?
Honestly, I think being a doctor is really difficult. Let me give you an easy example. There's a famous YouTuber called Ali Abdaal. He studied medicine at Cambridge and worked as a doctor in the UK. But after a few years, he quit and became a full-time YouTuber. The reason is simple. He spent 6 years studying, then worked long and exhausting hospital shifts, and the pay was surprisingly low for all that effort. Meanwhile, his YouTube channel earned him much more, with far more freedom. So even someone smart enough to study medicine at Cambridge walked away from the job. That being said, being a doctor is easier in one way. Doctors never worry about losing their job because people always need them.
Why do some children want to become doctors?
Honestly, I think most children want to become doctors simply because their parents tell them to. At that age, kids haven't figured out what they really want in life. Let me give you an easy example. Say a boy's parents keep telling him that a doctor is a great job with good money and respect. He has no dream of his own yet, so he just takes his parents' dream as his own. But when he really becomes a doctor years later, he may find the job is nothing like he imagined, with exhausting night shifts, and by then it feels too late to start over. That being said, some children want it for their own reason. Maybe a doctor once saved their grandpa, so they truly see doctors as heroes and want to become one themselves.
Do you think learning biology is interesting for children?
Yeah, I think biology is one of the most interesting subjects for children because it explains the clever reasons behind how animals behave. Let me give you an easy example. A child might learn that lions are the only cats that live and hunt in groups. By working as a team, they can take down a much bigger animal like a buffalo, which a single lion could never catch alone. To a child, that shows just how clever wild animals are at surviving, so they start wondering how other animals stay alive in the wild too. That being said, some parts of biology are simply too difficult for children to learn, like the complicated chemistry happening inside their cells. Those topics are better saved for when they're older.
Do you think governments should put a large amount of money into medical research?
Yeah, I definitely think so, because it's actually one of the best ways to spend taxpayers' money. Let me give you an easy example. Imagine a tech worker who codes hard every single day and pays a huge amount of tax. He doesn't really mind paying it because he knows that one day he'll want the best care possible. So when he's 60 and develops a serious illness like cancer, the treatment that saves his life only exists because the government funded that research for years. In the end, his own tax money comes back to protect him. That being said, the government still has to spend it wisely, focusing on the diseases that affect the most people, so that the largest number of taxpayers actually benefit.
Has technology changed people's friendships? How?
Yeah, I'd say technology has actually made people's friendships worse. Let me give you an easy example. Two friends might go to a cafe together, sit down across from each other, but barely have any real deep conversation. Instead, they spend most of their time taking photos of their drinks and busy posting them on social media to show everyone they're hanging out. So even though they're physically together, they're not really connecting at all. And the friendship slowly becomes more about looking good online than actually caring about each other. That being said, technology isn't all bad for friendships. For people living far apart, a quick video call can keep a friendship alive in a way that wasn't even possible before.
Why do some young people feel bored when talking with old people? Why aren't young people willing to listen to the experiences of older people?
Honestly, I think it's because many old people love sharing life stories that just aren't relevant to today's world. Let me give you an easy example. Say a young office worker visits his grandpa. His real worry is AI because his company has started using it and he's afraid his job may be replaced soon. But his grandpa keeps telling stories from his factory days, like how staying loyal to one company for 40 years got him a stable life. That advice meant something back then, but it has nothing to do with what he's facing now. So he just nods politely and waits for the chat to end. That being said, it's not only those stupid stories. Some old people also turn every chat into a lecture, so it feels like being taught rather than having a conversation.
Do you still keep in touch with your friends from childhood? Why or why not?
Honestly, I've lost touch with most of my childhood friends because those friendships are usually based on living nearby, not on having much in common. Let me give you an easy example. Take a tech worker. As a kid, he became best friends with the boy next door, just because they lived on the same street and went to the same school. But as adults, their lives went in opposite directions. He became a high-level engineer at a big tech company doing cutting-edge work, while his old friend took an ordinary office job at a small local firm. So now they have nothing in common, and their conversations die within minutes. That being said, some do last. If you and a childhood friend grow up into the same kind of person, sharing the same values, you stay close no matter how much time passes.
How important is childhood friendship to children?
I'd say childhood friendship is really important because a young child with no friends will start to think something is wrong with him. When you're older, you can handle being alone because you understand you've simply got different life goals from the people around you, so you just don't fit. But a child can't think it through like that. Think about a teenager who loves studying while all his friends just want to party. He can't figure out that they've simply grown into different people. So instead, he assumes something must be wrong with him, like he's boring or no fun to be around, and that feeling can stick with him for years. With that said, a few children genuinely enjoy their own company and grow up perfectly happy on their own.
What's the difference between having younger friends and older friends?
I'd say the main difference is that older friends give you more valuable advice. It's more valuable because they've already been through what you're facing. Let me give you an easy example. Say a young guy is thinking about starting his own YouTube channel. His younger friends would just hype him up and tell him to go for it. But an older friend who's already tried it can warn him about the real risks, like getting only a few views on his first 10 or even 20 videos, which is really discouraging, so he goes in knowing what to expect. That being said, younger friends have their own value too. They're always pushing you to try new things you'd never do on your own, like picking up a trendy new hobby or app everyone's talking about.
现在只剩下最后7题了，这7题我都没有办法举例。像遇到这种无法举例的情况下，我建议大家用 something specific 来扩展。这个 something specific 可以是 a particular thing, action, time or place， 可以是一个具体的事物，一个具体的行为，一个具体的时间或一个具体的地点。反正不管是之前我给大家说的举例，还是现在用的 include something specific 这个方法，都是教大家往具体的方面写，只有往具体的方面说，答案才容易说长。比如说这一题 Are there many people who can speak foreign languages in your country? 你不要去用一些非常抽象的原因去解释我们是怎么样学外语的，用具体的东西，用 particular thing 来解释，要更容易说一些。比如说这个地方我打算用 American shows 和 English posts on social media 这两个具体的东西来解释我们是怎样学外语的。 Most of us speak at least some English these days. We grow up watching American shows and scrolling through English posts on social media every day. So we are surrounded by the language all the time. This means we pick it up naturally, almost without trying. And most of us can hold a basic conversation pretty comfortably. 我们用 American shows 和 English posts 这两个非常具体的东西，是不是就很容易能够解释出我们是怎样自然而然地学会英语的，对吧？我再来给大家举个例子。What are good ways to manage traffic? 我们可以说 One of the best ways is to get companies to let their employees start work at different times. 然后扩展的时候，我们就加入 particular time, 加入具体的上班时间。Right now, almost everyone starts work at 9, so the whole city drives to work at the exact same time, and that's what creates the worst jams. But if some companies started at 8 and others at 10, all those cars would be spread across the morning instead of all driving at once, so the traffic would flow much more smoothly. 如果我们只是说大家应该在不同的时间开始上班，很难把答案说长。但是如果我们加入这些具体的时间的话，9点、8点、10点，答案就很容易变长。我们可以先说一说，一般大家都是9点开始上班，但是如果有些公司是8点，还有些公司是10点的话，大家就可以很容易的错开高峰期。现在我来给大家播放最后7题的答案。
Are there many people who can speak foreign languages in your country?
Yeah, I'd say most of us speak at least some English these days. We grow up watching American shows and scrolling through English posts on social media every day. So we're surrounded by the language all the time. That means we pick it up naturally, almost without trying, and most of us can hold a basic conversation pretty comfortably. That being said, older people are a completely different story. They grew up with no internet and barely any contact with foreigners, and even the English they did learn at school was only for passing exams, so most of them can hardly put a single sentence together out loud.
What are good ways to manage traffic?
Honestly, I think one of the best ways is to get companies to let their employees start work at different times. Right now, almost everyone starts work at 9, so the whole city drives to work at the exact same time, and that's what creates the worst jams. But if some companies started at 8 and others at 10, all those cars would be spread across the morning instead of all driving at once, so the traffic would flow much more smoothly. That being said, improving public transport helps too. If the subway is fast, cheap, and clean, a lot of people would happily leave their car at home and take it instead, so there would be fewer cars on the road.
Is there any food in your country that is eaten at special times or on special occasions?
Yeah, definitely. The most common one now is actually the birthday cake. Traditionally, we ate long life noodles on birthdays to wish for a long life. But American culture is so strong here, since we've grown up watching so many American movies and shows. In almost all of them, when it's someone's birthday, they bring out a cake covered in candles, everyone sings, and the person makes a wish and blows them out. We saw that so often that we slowly started copying it. That being said, we've still kept a lot of our own traditional foods, like eating dumplings at Chinese New Year, which American culture has never managed to replace.
How often do you visit your relatives or friends?
Honestly, I don't visit them very often, mainly because we see life completely differently. The thing is, I want a job I truly love, even if it means making sacrifices for now, like living in a cheap apartment and skipping fancy restaurants for months. But my relatives and friends believe the opposite. To them, the smart move is to grab a stable, well-paid job, buy a house and a car, and settle down as soon as possible. So whenever I visit, they just keep telling me I'm being unrealistic, and that gets pretty draining. That's why I'd rather spend my social life online instead, connecting with like-minded people who are chasing the same kind of dream. That being said, I still make an effort for the people who really matter, like showing up for my parents on their birthdays, because at the end of the day, they're still family.
Are there any differences between the videos that young people and older people like to watch?
Yeah, I'd say there's a clear difference, and it comes down to the kind of videos each generation is used to. Young people grow up with short-form videos like TikTok and Instagram Reels. They watch these short clips to keep up with the latest trends, like a new dance everyone's copying or a viral cafe spot everyone's posting about. But older people didn't have short videos when they were young. They were used to longer content on YouTube and Netflix. So even just for entertainment, they still prefer something longer, like a TV drama they can sink into. That being said, when it comes to actually learning something, there's barely any difference. Everyone prefers a longer video because you can't explain anything properly in 15 seconds.
Are there any differences between the videos that young men and young women like to watch?
Yeah, I'd say there's a pretty clear difference. Think about young men. After a long day, most of them relax by watching gaming videos. When a gamer wins an intense battle, it feels exciting and fun to watch, so they can forget about all their work stress and just switch their brain off completely. Young women, on the other hand, are usually drawn to a different kind of video. They follow beauty and lifestyle vloggers, watching how someone does her makeup or keeps fit, because these videos are more relatable to their daily lives. That being said, when it comes to learning something useful, the difference pretty much disappears. Both turn to the tutorials that are easy to follow along.
Which is more helpful, watching videos or reading books?
Honestly, I think it depends on the person, not the format of the information. For most ordinary people, whenever they read a book or watch a video, they're just doing it for entertainment to kill time, so they finish the day having learned nothing new. But successful people treat both as tools to grow. Think about how CEOs and managers use them. When they want to pick up a practical skill quickly, like how to use a new piece of software, they watch a video. But when they want to understand something deeply, like how a great leader built their company, they read a book. So for them, both end up being genuinely helpful.
这是我们在这个视频里讲到的所有的 strategies， 大家最好把这个视频多看几遍，至少要多听几遍。最后不要忘了看一下我们的3天挑战大作文，链接在 description 和置顶评论。我也很希望能够经常更新，不过制作这种长视频真的需要花很长时间。那我们下期视频再见。